We are live on a Thursday edition, the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there, what's up, everybody? Sports Bash is live. Don't forget, you can check us out. Variety of ways to check out the show. Listen on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Watch the show live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. Subscribe and be a part of the show that way. A lot of fun yesterday at Ventnor Social. Good to see a lot of people come out and say hello. That was fun. That was a good time. How's everybody doing? What was not a good time was the Phillies last night or yesterday afternoon. And where we'll kind of start today, we got the Oklahoma City wins last night. We've got Nolan Smith arrested. We'll tell you more about that coming up. We got football for Andrew DiCecco will give us his initial 53-man roster as Tuesday, the first OTAs for the Birds. Who will be on the Birds? We'll talk to Andrew tonight at football at 4. We've got the Unsportsmanlike Moment of the day. We've got Phillies Fastball with Jeff and Oscar. But a couple things. One, do the Phillies have a Aaron Nola problem? I think we got to start there. You know, because fair is fair. When Taijuan Walker stinks and we're like, dude, you got to get rid of this guy. Aaron Nola, do we have an Aaron Nola problem? And I posted on the old Twitter X platform, I asked a simple question, and I got a lot of responses on this. What can the Phillies do with Aaron Nola? All suggestions and ideas are welcomed. Leave a note in the suggestion box below. And plenty of you did leave a suggestion in the suggestion box below, and I'm going to read off some of those suggestions in the suggestion box below. But do the Philadelphia Phillies have an Aaron Nola problem? And I think the answer to that question is unequivocally yes, they do. Now, I like to think that I have answers to problems, or at least suggestions. There's a problem, I have a suggestion. In this instance, I don't know that I do have a suggestion. What do you say? 609-403-0973 on the White Horse RV text board. I mean, I really am at a loss on this one. The Taijuan Walker thing, listen, the guy was signed for 3 years, $18 million a year. Actually, was it 4 years? 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. 22? He was here in 22. No, he was here in 23. 23, 24, 25, 26. I think he signed, was Walker a 4-year, $18 million a year deal? Now I'm blanking on that. Was it a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal that Taijuan Walker signed? But we all kept saying, look, they got Taijuan Walker. He's making $18 million a year. He's not going anywhere. Until he did. But the only reason he went anywhere is because it was the last year of his deal. So they swallowed the money. He signed a 4-year deal. Thank you, Josh. I thought it was 4 years at $18 million a year. So they had a Taijuan Walker problem, and they didn't do anything about it until now. Here's the problem with Aaron Nola, as I see it. They have an Aaron Nola problem. They know it. He's got 4 years left on his deal at $25 million a year. They were not willing to eat the $18 million of Taijuan Walker. They just kept trotting him out there. You think they're going to eat $25 million a year over the next 4 years? $100 million? Woof. You talk about bad contracts? This one's up there. I don't think Dombrowski, Daryl Morey gets hammered for the Joel Embiid contract, the Paul George contract, which he should. He's the guy who's the GM. You're in charge. That's on you. Dave Dombrowski signed some horrible contracts. The difference is in baseball, you can overshadow them and fix them by just signing more bad contracts. We signed Taijuan Walker, bad contract. I'll just go sign Aaron Nola and make it a worse contract. It's the old Lewis Black, the comedian. I don't know if you guys ever remember Lewis Black, the comedian. He's a very cantankerous dude, and he would say, hey, I don't want to get into politics for so much to say, pick whatever political party that you're for or against. And he would say, I met a Republican and he said, I got an idea. And the Democrat says, and I can make it crappier. That's basically what Dave Dombrowski did here. I got a bad contract? Yeah, and I can find one that's worse. I'll sign Aaron Nola for 7 years, $25 million a season. Why am I talking like Lewis Black? I don't know. So anyway, what his comedy special from years ago, I just crack up every time thinking about those lines. But that's the problem. That's the problem that they have. They have an Aaron Nola problem, and quite frankly, I don't know what you do about it. And here's the thing, why I bring this up today. You cannot expect to realistically compete for the division if you're trotting a guy out there every single time. Now, last year you got by because Atlanta's hurt. They're so far out of it. Mets are, that's not the case this year. You're already behind the 8 ball. So you can't just have a scheduled loss every single time Aaron Nola is on the schedule. You're 9 games back now. 2 days ago, you were 7 games out. That seems manageable. Now you're back to 9. You can't say every time Nola pitches, we can't win. Now, I know you won the last time he pitched, but you were down 6-0 in that game. Imagine if you didn't come back in that game, down 6-0. Now you're 10 games out. You have an Aaron Nola problem, and if you want to win the division, you can't keep just trotting him out there. So do the Phillies just punt and say, we're not going to win the division? What do you do about it? You want to hear some of the responses that I got on the Twitter X platform?
I do want to hear them because, one, I'll be entertained. I'll get a good laugh out of it. And two, to me, the Aaron Nola problem is...
It's unfixable, in my opinion.
It's just so bizarre because this is now multiple starts that he has started the game and he looks good. And then all of a sudden...
Yeah, but this has been Aaron Nola. He looks good, and then he has one bad inning where he gives up 6 runs, and then,
But see, back in the day, like, it was so long ago, but a few years ago, like, Nola he would get you through 4 or 5 innings, but then when you kept him in there too long, it was the 6th and 7th inning he implodes. Now he's imploding in the 3rd and 4th inning. So you're losing 2-3 innings every start before he volcanic erupts.
Yeah, I get that. He is... We talked about this yesterday during Phillies Fastball. I thought Jeff and Oscar both brought up good points. The ABS system is hurting a pitcher like Nola, who was a nibbler. He would try the outside corner, and if he got it, he could live there. Well, the ABS system, the umpire's not giving you that outside corner because he doesn't want to be called out.
Sure.
He doesn't want to be made a fool that he's given that outside corner. So they're not calling those spots anymore. And if somebody calls the ABS on you early in the game, now you can't keep going there and keep going there. So 91 miles an hour, everybody can hit a 91-mile-per-hour fastball if it's over the middle of the plate. And that's where his pitches are. They're over the middle of the plate. So Nola's a problem. Do the Phillies have an Aaron Nola problem? Absolutely. How do they fix it? I don't have an answer. I really don't, because 2 reasons. 1, he's making $25 million a year for 4 more years. That's not something you just dump on the side of the road. That's 1. 2, somebody said DFA him. That's not happening. Somebody said send him to the minors. That's not happening. The other problem as I see it is people are like, hey, send him to the bullpen. His stuff just doesn't play as well in the bullpen. He's not like someone's like, hey, John Smoltz went to the bullpen. He was a starter. John Smoltz had Tommy John surgery. That's why he went to the bullpen.
John Smoltz also had electric stuff. Like John Smoltz, his fastball, his slider, like they were the kind of pitches. I've heard John Smoltz talk about this in other interviews where like the only reason why it worked was because his stuff was so electric.
Yeah, no, he was a starter who had Tommy John, so they moved him to the bullpen so he wasn't putting so many innings on his
arm.
That's not the case here. Let's take a read of some of the messages coming in on the text board, on the White Horse RV text board, and then the people who responded into my suggestion box on the X platform. This one's from Coach Izzy. He says he's usually good for an inning or two. How about an eighth inning guy? I mean, at some point, Smoltz couldn't start anymore either. We have a closer, but let's try the setup man. Couple things. That was the one that remembered me about the Smoltz, so he was the one that said it. One, they have an eighth inning guy. They have two eighth inning guys, so he wouldn't be an eighth inning guy. If you're looking at Nola in the bullpen, to me, he falls back into the game that you had with Taijuan Walker, where he's kind of like a long man for 2 to 3 innings. If like the game, he's basically turned into a mop-up man for $25 million. You know, he said at some point Smoltz couldn't start anymore. Wasn't that he couldn't start anymore. He had Tommy John, and this was like back when Tommy John wasn't as frequent.
Right.
I think they were just trying to protect his arm a little bit. That's not the case with Nola here.
No, they were totally protecting his arm. Nola's problem isn't they were trying to protect him. Nola's problem is he can't be a consistent pitcher.
Tommy is checking in. He says DFA him, and I said he still has 4 years left. And he says, I don't care. Something tells me that Tommy, the guy writing the check, is going to care if he's got to cut a check for $25 million for 4 more years for a guy who's not doing anything.
Exactly.
Got another one here. Says you're stuck with him. You can't DFA, full no trade. Maybe they can make an injury and shut him down for a bit, see if that helps. It was a terrible contract, another Dombrowski move that isn't going to end well. That's what I said. I think you just have to make up an injury. And that's my only answer to this. The problem is you can't make up an injury for 4 years. You still have to pay him. But I think for right now, the problem with making up the injury is that means someone has to take his spot, and they don't have anybody.
They don't have anyone in the system.
No, they don't have anybody in the system. This one is from Hockey P Fan. It says middle relief until he earns his starting position slot back. That to me is a logical one. That one can work. Middle relief, like I said, little mop-up role. He pitches like, on a night where one of the pitchers has to leave in the 5th inning, and he pitches the 6th or the 7th, something to that effect. That, to me, is possible. Blue Hen 9183. No, Blue Hen 1983.
Same difference.
Says, I don't know, but I do know he's leaving too much right in the middle of the plate. Good observation. NR_Garrett says, can he play center for the pro basketball team? And while we're on it, can Embiid pitch?
In exchange.
It's funny. Glenn at Golden Domer 1201 says his salary makes it impossible to move him, so off to the bullpen. Glenn, I think that's one option. I think the fake injury thing, hey, your ankle hurts, doesn't it? No, not really. Yes, it does. I think that's where you're possibly looking at. WR Nation 123 says it's all about the pitch location with him. He's been his entire career. If he's off by an eighth of an inch on his location, he gets hammered. He lost his consistency. It's going to be hard to find at his age. I totally agree with that, but that's not fixing anything because I don't think that's coming back. RJ Sprouse says going to have to trade him and eat half his salary. I'd ask you, RJ, do you think there's a team out there that wants to trade for Aaron Nola right now?
Aaron Nola is less value than Taijuan Walker at this point.
Well, yeah, he has 4 years, $25 million a year left. He's got $100 million left on his deal.
You're talking about a guy who half the reason why he was signed, let's remind people of this, half the reason why Aaron Nola was given the contract he was is because Aaron Nola was a guy who would give you 6 to 7 innings, and half the time, he'd pitch really well. The other half of the time, he would implode. But the fact that he could give you a solid 6 innings almost every single night was a huge reason why the Phillies signed him.
Yeah, his durability. The fact that you need someone to make those 35 starts, and he was there to make them. And then normally in those 35 starts, he gave you 25 solid ones, and that got you through your summer. And you paid $25 million for someone basically to show up, and he's showing up, but now he's not showing out. And
Exactly.
That's the problem.
And I think what gets confused in all this is that Nola, what made him Nola was that he was the guy that every time the rotation would come to him, the manager, whoever it was, Gabe Kapler, Girardi, Thompson, now Mattingly, the idea is at least I don't need to go to my bullpen today. I don't need to go to my bullpen in the third, fourth, and fifth
He was
inning.
the bullpen saver. Now he's the bullpen
Killer.
Jeff in Ocean City says, I'm not giving up on Nola as a starter yet. Let's see where he's at the All-Star break. Now, Jeff, I think that's rational. I think the Phillies will look at it at the All-Star break, give him a chance to kind of maybe find it, but I think they know the answer to the quiz.
Well, really quick, Mike, let me ask you, because you're a guy who is well-versed in a lot of this stuff when it comes to pitching. After the last couple starts, Nola keeps saying, I'm seeing the postgame where he's like, I don't know what's wrong. He looks and sounds like a man who's completely lost.
He has no confidence, and he's a guy that's used to succeeding and can't figure out why he's
So
not
how
succeeding.
do you get his confidence back?
Actually, I take that back. He's a guy that's used to succeeding and has lost his confidence because he knows why he's not succeeding. And he knows, I can't change that. This is who I am. I think he's come to terms with, I'm staring in the mirror at a guy who was successful doing this, and I'm doing what I did to be successful, but that's not working, and I don't know what else to do. You know, it's like this happened to somebody. Oh, it was Jordan Romano. Jordan Romano last year, when you would talk to him, and he just was like, I used to be so good doing what I'm doing, throwing 98 miles an hour, and I'm still throwing 98 miles an hour, but they're hitting me now, and I don't understand why. Like, Romano just sounded like a guy who could not comprehend why he was not as successful as he used to be when his stuff was seemingly still there. And that's a tough thing to come to terms with, is your arm is still working. My arm don't work anymore. That's my problem. My arm just stopped working. Jeff adds that great weather and fun times at Ventnor Social yesterday. Awesome spot. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it was fun. Good to have you out there. Thanks for stopping out and saying hello. That was it's a great spot. I mean, he was upstairs on the deck, though. He left us high and dry.
Do you blame him?
No. This is from Chris in Northfield. Says, Mike, I happened to catch Larry Anderson. He said Aaron Nola needs to learn how to keep the ball low and out of the zone. Well, guess what, Chris? The key to pitching is keeping the ball low and right at the knees. You want to get it low at the knees and keeping it out of the zone. You want to be able to make it look like it's a strike, but it's not.
I will say to that point, I have heard other people ask the question, why does Nola throw his sinker high in the zone? Like, why does Nola continually throw a pitch that's meant to be down in the zone up? Like, is that just a psychological thing? Is that a mechanics thing?
I think he's lost command. Because look at the walk numbers he has now. That's a number that, in his great years, he had great command. Right. Now, he doesn't have great command. He cannot command his stuff, and that's one of the problems. He's walking guys. He's putting guys on base because he can't command. Then he's behind in counts. He doesn't throw hard enough, and he's getting hammered for it. I mean, it's not every inning of every game, but it only takes one inning to give up 6. It only takes one inning to give up the 4 or the 3, and if you're giving up 3 in one inning, with this offense's inconsistencies, it's hard for them to come back. I mean, yesterday, you take a look at it, he pitched 5 innings. He gave up 4 runs. Well, 3 of them came in the second inning. So right. He's having that 1 inning, and he just can't, the offense can't help. Now, it helped him last week against Pittsburgh where he gave up 6 in 1 inning.
Well, the other thing is that when Nola has these innings where he falls apart, it's not like Luzardo. Like when Luzardo has a rough inning in some of these starts he's had the last couple of years, like you see moments where they could have gotten out of it, where like if a guy fields the ball better or a dribbler, like it's in no man's land, or like there's moments in these Luzardo starts where like things don't go well. You're like, you know what? If that just was different, if you threw a different pitch, Nola, when those innings go bad, it looks like it's just nothing is going right. There's no possible redeeming factor.
Well, he's given up 3 runs or more in 8 of his 10 starts this season. So that's obviously something that is definitely – he's given up a big inning. I'd like to see, he says 3 runs in 8 of his 10 starts. I'd like to see how many of those starts he gave up 3 or more runs in one inning. Because he's having the bad inning has been one of the big problems there.
I mean, I'll look it up, but I'm assuming it's all of them.
609-403-0973. So a lot of text messages coming in. Mike, I think it's psychological. I think the ABS system is in his head, and he thinks he has to make perfect pitches, which is making him miss in the middle of the zone. I think that's a fair one. Bill from Upper Township, I think that's fair, is to say that he's hitting the middle part of the plate, and he doesn't throw hard enough, and he's getting rocked. I love this, too. Like, I coach 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, and you get a kid out there who doesn't throw that hard, and they're like, this kid throws too slow. I'm like, who doesn't complain about someone throwing too slow? A good hitter. No good hitters up there is like, oh, this guy throws too slow. I can't hit him. No, you know what he does? He distributes that ball 435 feet into the flower basket in the outfield. And that's what's happening, is these guys are good hitters, and Aaron Nola's not throwing hard enough, and they're not going, this guy throws too slow. No, they're hitting him hard, and they're hitting him all over the place. And I look at it, and I say the Phillies have a Aaron Nola problem, and I don't know that they can fix it because of the financial problem that he would bring this team if they ended up getting rid of him. And as I watched that game last night, the one thing that I look at and I wonder is how long can they keep trotting him back out there? They did it all year last year with Taijuan Walker. They did it in years past with Taijuan Walker. Can you keep doing it with Aaron Nola? Because Nola's not Taijuan Walker. He has a lot more history with this team. He's been a runner-up in the Cy Young Award. And he makes $25 million. $25 million a year for the next 4 seasons. So do the Phillies have an Aaron Nola problem? You're damn right they do. Can it be fixed? I don't know about it.
So his last 3 starts, all the earned runs that he allowed in each of those starts was all given up in 1 inning.
Not surprising.
So the Reds game was all in the 2nd inning. In the Pirates game, it was all in the third
inning. Gave up 6.
And the Rockies was all in the 4th.
2 o'clock hour of the show. By the way, Sean Mannion, the Eagles offensive coordinator, is speaking for the first time sometime today. They are scheduled to start coordinator press conferences at 2:30. We will carry them for you. If Mannion speaks, you'll hear him on the Sports Desk. We have not heard from him yet since he has been hired. He has not spoken yet. This today will be the first time we hear from Sean Mannion.
By the way, it's so rare that Mannion's not spoken. The picture online, like promoting like he's speaking today, says him in a Packers gear.
I actually, if you look on the YouTube channel, I have a picture of him wearing Eagles gear.
You found it.
It was on their website, the Eagles website.
Well, bad job by the Eagles.
Bad job by the Eagles graphic guy.
Yeah.
This graphic guy's better than their graphic guy.
Maybe they should hire you.
To do graphics? Maybe.
You're pretty good at them. You know what? I can tell you who is good at something. It's our 2 o'clock hour sponsors, the law offices of Craig A. Altman. Listen, when you get injured, you need to have someone on your side who is not just going to wing it. They're not going to hope for the best. They're not going to guess. Don't hire someone just because you saw a fancy TV commercial. You need someone who has the tough lawyers who can handle the tough cases. Car accidents, slip and fall, workplace injury. The law offices of Craig A. Altman, they know how to put pressure on the insurance companies. And they're located right here on Delsey Drive in Vineland. Yes, right here in South Jersey. 856-327-8899. Offices in Vineland, backed by a Philly law firm that knows how to win. 856-327-8899. Or visit them online at craigaltmanlaw.com.
All right, so hang tight. Mannion might be speaking next. We don't know if he's first or if Fangio's first. So Fangio also speaking today. We'll hear from him for the first time this offseason about some of his new toys on defense, including Jonathan Grenard. Rick Woolen. So Mannion today, Fangio today. Also, our buddy Kevin Cooney has got a new Substack, the Cooney Report. He has things that are bothering him about Philadelphia sports. I loved it. I read the Substack this morning, and I said, I got to talk to Kevin about some of these things. So our buddy Kevin Cooney, longtime writer from the Philly area, going to join me in the 5 o'clock hour tonight on the Sports Bash. 2:30 Sports Bash. What's up, everybody? So Vic Fangio going to talk first. We have him ready to go. He is at the podium. We'll get to him in a second. We imagine Michael Clay, the special teams coordinator, will be next. And I mean, Sean Mannion will probably have for you in the 3 o'clock hour for the first time. So Fangio in a moment. Phillies Fastball in about a half an hour. DiCecco gives us his 53. Kevin Cooney, things he hates about Philly sports right now, 5 o'clock tonight. That's all right here on the Sports Bash. Let's go to Eagles defensive coordinator. For the first time, did he think about retirement? How close was he to that? Jonathan Grenard, Rick Woolen. Does he need safety help? We're about to get some answers. Let's go to Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio right now on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN.
All righty, fellas. Haven't seen you in a while.
How's it going?
Good.
Vic, were you close to stepping away? What was the offseason like for you as far as making a decision about coming back?
No, I wasn't close. I've had those thoughts in, the last few years. Every year at the end of the year, I just think about it, and I never really got serious to where I would have done it. And, it's no different than I did after 24 season, after 23 season. I told the players the other day that, we had our annual physical. We get physicals as coaches, and the docs told me I was reverse aging with my lab work and everything that came up. So I told them, you guys are stuck with me for a while, a long while.
When you have to come back, though, what is it that keeps you coming back? What keeps you going?
I still like doing it. I like the group of guys we have. I like working with them. I still like the challenge of the job. Work for a good organization. Really, it's just something that I think you'll always think about at the end of the year. But in the end, I didn't come close to doing it, and I really don't foresee myself doing it. I'm good for 2 years, at least.
Jonathan Grenard, you've seen him from afar.
Mm-hmm.
What have you liked about him?
That he's been a good pass rusher. He's been productive in the rush. He's had years where he's had good numbers sack-wise. But like we always discuss, pressure on the quarterback is also important. And he's been able to do that throughout his career. I think he's strong on the edge versus the run game. So we're excited to have him. But I think there's a lot of good there.
How about Rick Woolen, the other big addition? What do you see from him?
Yeah, I'm excited to have him. We looked at him during the middle of the season last year a little bit because they may have been interested in trading him, and we didn't decide to do it. And I didn't get too involved in the evaluation, but then when it came free agency time this year, and I actually sat down and watched him thoroughly, I was excited for him, and kind of surprised that he was one of those guys that didn't get a lot of action for a long-term deal. And, so I was thrilled to get him. I think he's going to play good for us.
What about his game were you excited about?
Well, he's a rare guy in that you don't see many corners in the league that are 6'4". You don't see many that are 6'2" or even 6'1". And there's a reason for that. It's hard to find guys at those heights that can move and mirror receivers that are, hard to cover. He can do that for a guy his height. He can get in and out of breaks. He obviously has good downfield speed. And his length is more of a asset than a detriment in his case. So I'm excited to have him. He's been here, since we started the offseason. Seems to be a great guy. He's into being here, and really looking forward to working with him.
What's your reaction to Nolan Smith speeding incident? Is this something where you reach out and talk to him about it?
Yeah, eventually I will. But, Coach addressed it today. I didn't find out about it till this morning. So, But yeah, we'll address it with him at some point.
What's your view of the second safety spot next to Cooper?
What's that?
What's your view of the safety?
It's open. I think Marcus is someone that will have put up good claim to it. In base, it will be Cooper. When we go to nickel and Coop comes up and plays nickel, it'll be Epps. We're taking a good look at Michael Carter back there. Who else am I forgetting? Yeah, Andre Sam. And then we signed an undrafted free agent, Gush. JT Gray has been mainly a special teams player, but, he'll get a look. So we'll look at all those guys. It's an open competition.
With all the moving pieces at safety.
What's that?
With all the moving pieces at the other safety spot, how important is Drew McCoop's offseason? And I guess how have you seen his development so far in the last few months?
It's been good. As you guys know, last year, his season, first off, his training camp was interrupted by a couple injuries that kept him out for 2 different lumps of time. Started off the season up and down, had some shaky plays. But I felt like the last 5 or 6 games prior to him getting hurt, he was coming on. And hopefully he'll be able to pick up from there. He's had a rehab-dominated off-season, but he's been out there with us these last couple weeks. He's not 100% yet, but he will be soon.
With Carter, Michael Carter, is there something innate about him that you think will make him a good safety, or is it about the nickel position that translates well to that spot, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I don't think it's the nickel position translating that. That's an individual thing. Yeah, he's an instinctive player. I think he has a good feel for the game. When little he did play for us last year, he did show that. I don't think he'll have a hard time learning the position mentally. He's just got to go out there and be able to do it. And, what we've been doing out there these last couple of weeks are just kind of walkthroughs and route pickups against other defensive players running the routes or even non-players. But I think we'll know early whether he's got the feel for it or not.
Jihad would miss most of the offseason. How's he coming along, and was that always part of the plan, I guess, when he was drafted last year?
Part of what plan?
Because he had issues with both shoulders, and he had the procedure on one last year, and then he had procedure on the other one. Was that always part of the plan when he got drafted, or is that something that?
I don't know that. I don't know that. Yeah, to agree or disagree, I don't know. If we knew last year at this time he would have to get the other shoulder done, I don't know that.
How's he coming along?
Good. He's just not going to be able to partake in these OTAs till maybe later, maybe not, but he'll be ready for training camp.
The on-field leadership part of losing N'Kobe and Reed specifically, how comfortable are you with that aspect of it?
Yeah, I think we'll get guys that will step up. We played, I think, the first 7 games last year without N'Kobe. Zach did a good job of that. Obviously, Reed did a good job quarterback in the secondary, especially when, because he had Andrew Whittam there as a rookie. I think Andrew will be able to step up his game there along those lines. And if Epps is the guy, he'll definitely be able to do that also.
Have you had an opportunity yet to sit with Sean Mannion at all? And what are your first impressions of him?
Yeah, we haven't, obviously we've talked some. But he's been pretty busy. So we haven't had any in-depth discussions or anything, but he occasionally pops in and we'll ask something here and there.
What did you see from Epps last year, and what does he do well? What do you like about him?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Maybe surprised is the wrong word because I just really didn't know him. But when he had to play last year, he came in and showed his experience, showed his instincts that he has for the game, and I was pleased with the way he played last year. And, he's still, I wouldn't consider him an old player at this point. The think he's obviously a veteran. I think he'll do fine. I'm not sure what his injury history has been, but I think if he stays injury-free and if he wins the job, we'll be fine.
What's kind
Working
of
hard and coming in and not really having played the game. What are the differences in developing someone like that?
Yeah, it's real different. The guy's never played high school football, college football. I had a similar experience with when I was with the Niners. We had a guy by the name of Lawrence Okoye, who was an Olympic discus thrower for England. Looked a lot like Uar looks now, and we kept him for a couple years. Other teams tried it, never worked for him. But patience will need to be a virtue, both on his part and ours.
What are you seeing from Jalen Carter? Obviously, he had the shoulder issues throughout a lot of last season and everything, just like where he is with the shoulder and what you've seen so far.
I think his shoulders are fine. He's had a good offseason of lifting. I think he started that earlier than normal for him, and you can see the difference in that regard. So, I think he's in a better spot now than he was.
What's the next step for Jay Wilkes Hunt entering year 3, and where are you looking to see him grow his game?
Just keep doing what he's doing. He's had a nice progression. I see him growing his game in all aspects. I think he can and will rush better. He'll play the run better. It's just the natural progression. He's had a good progression. In his rookie year, he didn't play a lot early. Then when BG went down, he started playing more. And I thought for a guy with his background, it was kind of a perfect year for him. He ended up playing a good bit, if you remember, in the playoffs, etc. Then last year played a lot, did good. Yeah, I think he's just ready to keep getting better and better.
You had Chris Cooper on, I think, all your staffs in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
What did you like about him as a coach, and why did you want him around?
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot to do with that, in that, he was a guy that Sean brought up that he would want to hire, and at that time I wasn't even in, most of the coaches weren't even in the office. Obviously Nick was, he was interviewing 20 guys. And then when they got down to where it would look like they could, want to hire him or get close, they realized that I had him for 3 years in Denver. They gave me a call about him. And I think Coop's an excellent coach. He did a great job for us in Denver. Worked under Mike Munchak there for a good 3 years. Went on to Minnesota as the head line coach. I thought did a good job there. I have the utmost confidence in Coop that he'll do a great job here, and I think the players will like and respect him. I don't see any issue there.
Christian Parker, good evening. What made Joe Casper the right logical choice as defensive passing coordinator, and then similarly with Mike Paolantonio coming in as secondary?
Defensive pass game coordinator?
Whatever, defensive pass.
All these titles you guys see around the league? Pass game coordinators, run game coordinators, and there's many more. Assistant head coach, associate head coach, this, that, and the other. You know what those titles mean? About as much as this bottle of water is going to mean after I finish drinking it. But, Joe was with me in Miami. When I came back here, he came with me. Done a good job, so he was the logical choice just to move up and have the utmost confidence in him.
Going back to Reek, he said when he met with us that he wanted to do a better job of controlling his emotions. We've seen sometimes where he had lapses where he get beat over the top. When you're analyzing that versus, all the positives, how do you sort of view that?
What was the first part?
So Reek said that he wanted to do a better job of controlling his emotions with the taunting penalties and things like that. But, your comments were you're surprised he didn't get a long-term deal. So when you're evaluating a player in that respect, what are the...
Yeah, I think I think he'll grow out of that. We'll show him plenty of examples. I think it was in the playoff game when they had the one that was most serious and could have been most damaging. If he doesn't learn from that, I don't know how he would learn from anything else. But I'm confident he'll overcome that.
It's our first time speaking to you since the end of the season. How do you view year 2 here, and what's the next step for the defense?
And you always give these wide range questions. How do I view year 2? Just through the lens of the defense, in some ways I thought we were very good, had some very, very good games. And there's the narrative out there that, if the offense could have been better, we would have had a more successful season. But we could have played better, too, on defense and in certain games. And we need to take that mindset moving forward.
Not to bring it back to the potential of life after football for you, but as a football lifer, have you talked to Stout at all about what it has been like to not be in the building?
Yeah, okay. I mean, him and I live near each other. I haven't seen him in the last few weeks, but we played golf a couple times, but I haven't seen him lately. He seems to be enjoying himself. And I know he's playing a lot of golf. I don't know that he's gotten any better, but he's trying. I usually do. And I'm older than he is.
Last one. You had mentioned that you, at the end of every year, you kind of think about those things. What do you consider when you think about those things?
Well, your birth certificate tells you should think about it. And I do, and then I'm always back. And I'm back. All right.
Thanks, Vic.
All right, there's Vic Fangio, everybody, and he had a wide range of different things that he brought up. We're going to dive into it coming up on the other side here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I thought he revealed a couple of very interesting things. He was funny. He had some humorous answers as well. We'll hear from Sean Mannion in the next hour. Stick around for that. Phillies Fastball in 12 minutes. Don't go anywhere. More Sports Bash coming up. All right, 253. You just heard from Vic Fangio. Some of the highlights from me on Fangio. Said he wasn't close to stepping away. Said the doctor said he was reverse aging, and they told the players, "You're stuck with me for a while." He said, "I'm good for at least 2 years." So I thought that was something because there was some talk about him being done at the end of last year. He said, "No, that never really happened." Fangio on Jonathan Grenard, good pass rusher, strong on the edge versus the run game. Seemed excited that he's got him in there on Woolen. Said they had interest in him at the deadline. Surprised he didn't get a lot of action for a long-term deal, and he's happy that he is in Philadelphia. Said the safety spot is open. Cooper will be there for base, which he's been in the past. Then in nickel, he'll move to the nickel, and then someone else will come in. Said he's taking a good look at Michael Carter, who they traded for last year from the Jets. Said he liked Makuba, thought he was coming on last season before he got hurt. He did talk about Jalen Carter. Said, I think his shoulders are fine. He's in a better spot than he was last year at this time. On Jalix Hunt, he said, I think he's ready to get better and better. Yeah, he seemed to speak a lot very highly on Hunt. And then he did add at the end that he thought the team could have played better defense in certain games. I wonder if that reference could be coughing up a fourth quarter lead or two in the San Francisco wildcard game, something that I've talked a lot about. That, yeah, of course, the offense stunk last year, and I acknowledge that. But the defense had 2 leads in the fourth quarter of that game, and they couldn't get it done. And I think Vic Fangio saw what I saw. All right, Sean Mannion's going to speak. We'll have that for you coming up in about a half an hour on the Sports Bash. So 3:30, Sean Mannion, you'll hear him on the Sports Bash. First time he is addressing the media in Philadelphia. That is coming up at 3:30 today. Plus, Fangio did say he was down on the Phillies. He didn't like them firing Rob Thompson, and we'll see on Don Mattingly. We'll have that sound coming up. Don't go away. All right, 3 o'clock hour time for the Phillies Fastball. We'll take a look at all things Phillies. Lost yesterday against the Reds. They lose that series. They're now 9 games back of the Braves. No game tonight. They'll play tomorrow night. And our Phillies Fastball segment, it's brought to you by Ventnor Social, the place to go catch every Phils game this weekend. 20 big screen TVs. We were there yesterday. Great spot to watch the Phils. They got the outside deck. It's up. It's ready to go. And don't worry about the weather. They got the upstairs deck enclosed, heaters. Great spot for this weekend's Phillies series. We're going to talk more about the Phils. Do the Phillies have an Aaron Nola problem? We talked about that in the first hour. What's the ideal batting lineup for this team? We got that and more right now with Oscar and Jeff. It's our Phillies Fastball segment here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. We're going to take a look at the Phils coming up. They got a big 21-game stretch, and that's what we're going to dive into right now on today's Phillies Fastball with Oscar and Jeff right now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Boys, well, Phils are 9 games back all of a sudden in the National League East. And, boy, they were 7 games back, and it felt like, hey, they're right there, and now 9. It's amazing how one weekend, or one series, I should say, all of a sudden makes things feel a little bit differently, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, I think we need to keep things in perspective. I think the team went to a very difficult stretch in the beginning of the year. Mattingly came in, put some order into it. And there were some very interesting numbers that I'm going to share with you guys as we go into the podcast in terms of what was the winning percentage of the teams before Mattingly took over, when Mattingly took over, and what's coming up, Mike, which is going to be a very rough stretch. It's going to be very interesting how the Phillies are able to play the next 21 games.
Yeah, you take a look at where they started the season. They were 8-9, and a lot of people looked at the teams they played out of the chutes that were like just kind of iffy. But you're about 500. It's the first 15 games. It was really that Cubs Braves sequence that really threw them off track, and then they, the schedule lightened up. They started to play much better baseball. But you're right, Oscar. Let's take a look at the next 21 games that they have coming up. 6 out of the 7 series, they're going to play teams that are probably playoff-level teams, plus the Blue Jays, who were pretty good a year ago.
Yeah, and Jeff and I have been talking about this, but just to give you some perspective, in the games that where Topper was the manager, where we went 9-19, the winning percentage of those teams was 50.7. And just to put it in perspective, that would be that those teams would win 82 games during the year, so an 82-80 season. During the stretch that Mannion took over, where we've gone 16-6, during those 22 games, the teams that we played have a 45.8 winning percentage, which would equivalent to 74-win season. So from 82 wins where Topper was here to 74 wins, those are the teams that we have faced. And now we're going to go to a stretch where we're facing first or second team in 6 out of the next 7 series. And those teams would have an average of about 90.6 wins per year. So against San Diego, we're playing a couple of series against San Diego. We're playing the Dodgers. We're playing Cleveland this weekend. Cleveland and LA are first place teams. And then Cleveland, on the other hand, they're playing at all cylinders. They're leading the American League East Central right now.
Yeah, Jeff, you take a look at what's coming up here. We saw them play well for a 20-game stretch. They lost these last 3. What's your takeaway from just the Red Series moving forward now as they go into this tougher stretch of games?
Yeah, Mike. Well, one thing is, and sometimes this is why I hate talking about win percentage, and Oscar and I talk about it a lot, but the goal in baseball is to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and you're going to make the playoffs. And they definitely have done that over the last 22 games outside of the Red Series. And they didn't have Kyle Schwarber for anything in that series. So, it is what it is, 16-6, got their season back on track. They're back to 500. But, yeah, I think it's fair to mention they're playing the Dodgers and they're playing the Padres twice. And they got a bunch of other teams coming up before their schedule kind of lightens up at the end of June. That gets tougher in July again. But from this Red Series, my biggest takeaway was I didn't think the bullpen was that great. I kind of mentioned that yesterday, and that was an instant reaction after the game. But the bullpen was not great in that series. We talked about the Aaron Nola problem. I don't think this thing's going away anytime soon. I know everybody says we should trust Aaron Nola, right? Well, why should we? Based on the last, year and a half? I don't know. I feel like if you get 5 innings, 6 innings, and 3 or 4 earned runs, everybody looks at the contract. But right now, I'm taking that with Aaron Nola.
Yeah. And then the other thing on this series, you couldn't hit without Schwarber. I mean, we didn't hit at all. I mean, they out-hit us big time for more than close to 20 or 15 more hits than we hit. So we need Schwarber back in the lineup. Hopefully he'll be back tomorrow.
How many runs did they score, though? What was their runs per game average?
It was not that great.
What's not that great? What's not that great? Because they scored more than 4 runs. They scored 4+ runs in 2 of those 3 games.
Yesterday they scored 4 in the game, right? The Phillies.
They scored 5 when they won 5-4, and then scored 1 run in the second game. But how many hits did we get? 13 hits in total in the series. I mean, that was look, we did not look the part. I mean, we play hero ball again, right? The home run, the only game that we won was because Stott hit a 2-run homer. But
well, that's their offense, though. That's what we're trying to say here. You need him to be part of that. That's how they play. I mean, you can't be this picky with this offense.
And part of the dynamics. Look, we're gonna get into a 21-game stretch against winning teams. If we don't play at all cylinders on pitching, hitting, and defense, we're not going to win a lot of these games. And that's
we're moving the goalposts again. They just swept the winning team this past weekend.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about they swept the Pirates, who I think if we
I don't care. It's a winning team.
I'm saying
I
I
don't want to
think
hear
if
it's
we're
just the Pirates.
I agree, but I'm saying you got to beat the teams in front of you. I do agree with that statement. But I think if we're being true here, that Pittsburgh team is probably about a middle of the road to lower back end of the road team, but that doesn't mean
they also never beat them in Pittsburgh, and they faced Paul Skeens. So
yeah, listen, you've got to take care of those teams. And yes, they won a game against Pirates, so they have some wins that you have to get. You got to get those. But I will say this about the Nola situation: they've got a Nola problem, and there's no way to fix that problem because
it's not.
You got 4 years, $25 million. You can't do anything with that contract. You can't DFA him. You can't send him to the minors. And they've already played this game before with Taijuan Walker, where they kept him out there. They kept running him out there. And then they moved him to the bullpen, and he had no role in the bullpen. They did that for 1 year, basically. They got 4 more years of this. This is a major problem. If you think you're going to get back into a division race, when you got a guy going out there basically giving up 6 runs every time he's out, that's a problem. And this is a 4-year problem potentially, guys. And there's, by the way, Oscar and Jeff, there's no fix to this.
There's no fix.
There isn't.
There is no fix.
There's no fix. We could try to argue this.
The only fix.
There is a fix, but there isn't.
The only fix is that both Aaron Nola, as a person that we know the quality of individual that he is a tremendous guy, both in and out of the field and what he does for the community. Him, together with Cawthon, together with Ramuto, and together with the entire pitching staffing team, they need to figure it out how to reinvent himself so he can be an effective pitcher the next 3 to 4 years. That's the bottom line on this. I do believe that there is potential. I do believe that there is potential for improvement. He's not going to find another 94. I was reading this morning. He has the worst fastball in baseball in terms of run value. The worst fastball in baseball. You need to reinvent the fastball. You cannot throw any more of the 4-seam fastball if it's the worst pitch in baseball. I mean, there's like 134 pitchers that were evaluated, and that was the worst pitch in baseball.
This is the only reason I disagree with the contract, because I liked the contract when they did it because they had to do it. But this is my red flag. Did they get their best years out of Aaron Nola from 2015 to 2023? The answer was yes. They did. So they should have made that the Atlanta Braves problem or somebody else's problem. And you had the Taijuan Walker contract on you. You didn't pitch a guy in the postseason, so you already had one bad pitching contract. Now, granted, I don't think they ever thought Christopher Sanchez was going to be how good he was going to be. And yet, you can't predict you're going to trade for Jesus Cesaro, but that's why you had a prospect like a Starling Cava. So you could trade for Jesus Cesaro. They could get creative there. But yeah, the Aaron Nola contract, it's a bad deal.
It's a terrible deal, and it's 4 more years of this, guys. It's 4 more years of this. And he's not the kind of guy, Oscar, you just said it. He's got the worst fastball in baseball. That doesn't profile as, hey, let me throw you in the 7th inning of a game when he doesn't throw that hard. So I don't know. He
needs to reinvent himself. I've been saying it for 2 years. He needs to find a way to reinvent himself. That's the reality.
And he can't be arrogant about it. He's
not the only pitcher. He's not the only pitcher that have gone through this. Look, when you have a Justin Verlander, when you have a Max Scherzer still pitching in baseball I mean, they're 40 plus. I mean, you need to find a way. He's a young guy enough to be able to reinvent himself. And by the way, his curveball is really good. I mean, but you need complementary pitches so that curveball can work.
The difference is, though, Verlander threw hard at one point. Scherzer threw hard at one point. Aaron Nola never threw hard.
Yeah.
Phillies fastball, Oscar and Jeff. Let's go to our next conversation here. What about JT Realmuto in this offense? Because Don Mattingly said the other day that, hey, we can't play him every single day. And everyone was kind of like, yeah, we've been saying that for years. I saw something today that he's caught over 1,000 innings more than the next guy over his Phillies tenure. I mean, now his offense is starting to slip. Do they have a Realmuto issue? Because one problem they have with Realmuto is the reason that Realmuto's back, guys, is they've never been able to figure out how to replace Realmuto.
Yeah, that's the sad part, right? And, his offense is starting to slip. It's kind of been slipping the last couple of years. That's why I sided with fans when they said, why did we give this guy 3 years again? Well, you didn't have anybody else. Like your pitching is better when JT Realmuto's behind the plate, but you just can't have him have an under 600 OPS. Like, he's 35 years old, and he just isn't giving you anything at the plate, but his backups aren't challenging him either. Like, Marchand's not doing it. We know what Stubbs is. Stubbs is more used as kind of a do-everything, right? He's on the roster as a catcher, but he can play the infield, and he can steal a base for you, and he can do that stuff late in games. Marchand, he has to hit better. He has to be better, and it's not happening, and this is why JT Realmuto plays every day. You got nothing in AAA that says that he can play. The catchers in AA just are not ready for that yet. It's really your best catching prospect is in Clearwater right now.
Oscar, let me ask you about Marchand. Are you disappointed that he has not been able to give you more with the extended? Because one of the things is, well, he doesn't get to play enough to really show what he can do. But he's been given some extended time when Realmuto's out, and he hasn't done much with those opportunities either.
Marchand is a very good defensive catcher, and we cannot take that away from him. Playing once a week is not easy when you've been accustomed to play your entire life, playing almost every day or whenever he was injured because of his back issue. I mean, he played on a consistent basis. That allows you to be able to make adjustments at the plate. When you play once or twice a week, and now with Stubby here, Stubby's going to play one game, and Marchand is going to play one game, and the other 5 games are going to be JT. Is very, very hard to ask too much from his hitting. He had a huge hit the other day to help us win a series. Was it in Pittsburgh, Jeff? I forgot where it was.
Yeah. The game last Friday night. Yep.
Yeah, last Friday night in Pittsburgh. But look, the reality of Realmuto is the following, right? I think the value of Realmuto go beyond the numbers. The trust and his ability to prepare our pitching staff to be ready for a game is something that the numbers are not going to tell you. If I go to the numbers, this guy is there's a measure in baseball called OPS plus, which basically kind of puts everybody on the same value. His OPS plus for his career is 109. So he's 9% above the average baseball player in Major League Baseball. Right now, this year, his OPS plus is 57. So
I thought it was 60, so it went down.
It's 57. So what does this tell me? Look, his value go beyond this. Wheeler, Nola, Christopher Sanchez, Luzardo. I mean, they all trust this guy. This guy said they put their hands on him. So
that's why he's here.
That his value goes beyond whatever numbers you're going to be seeing or whatever batting average he has right now. He's at 212 right now with a batting average and an OPS of 563. He's much more valuable than that.
Yeah, this is a team that is built around their starting pitching, and JT Realmuto, to add on to Oscar's point, is part of that. And, we were talking about Marchand, right? Like, this year has been a bad year for Marchand in general, but you have to wonder at some point, do the Phillies sign or try to trade for a better veteran backup catcher?
It's a possibility. It's a possibility. By the way, Paul Casella wrote a very interesting note. I kind of glanced through it this morning. Paul Casella from MLB.com wrote a very, very good story on Nola. And he basically said that Nola has catch one more year than any other catcher in baseball.
Realmuto.
Realmuto. That's who did I said, Marchand?
You said Nola.
Nola. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought you were going the pitching route there.
I meant Realmuto. Realmuto, look, it was a great story I glanced through it. I mean, the Realmuto have catch one more year than the other next catcher in baseball. Look, that speaks to the value.
He's an old 35. Yeah, that's a good point, Oscar.
But he's a very, very valuable. He's a very, very valuable piece of this equation. And look at our pitching.
That was the reference. That was the reference I was making, that he caught 1,137 more innings than any other catcher in the majors since joining the Phillies, which is the equivalent of 126 games, which is a full season for most catchers. And they gave him a 3-year deal with all that wear and tear. And, Jeff, you talk about his offense. What does he bring in offensively? We know what he brings defensively, but, Oscar, you just talked about it. Marchand's a good defensive catcher. There's a lot of guys who are good defensive catchers. He might be the best, but offensively, he is really starting to hurt this team with the numbers you guys put out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a roster you have. I mean, he's not on a big contract right now, and those are some of the things that we're taking care of. We don't have an extra probably left fielder because we wanted to give a chance to Otto Camp, as well as don't having to pay an additional $5, $6, $7 million. And that's a reality. You have a roster where you have very skew at the top, where what you pay for Schwarber, for Harper, for Nola,
Turner.
Wheeler, Turner. I mean, you have a very skew high paid race at the top, and then the rest you have to complement with additional
That's why this offseason is going to be kind of fun, because you're going to have money to actually improve those leaks or cracks in the roster. You can have a more balanced roster. Yeah. Oh, let's be real. They're not cracks. Cracks can be fixed.
All right, boys. As we just talked about this offense and some of the problems, and there's no Schwarber. There was no Schwarber, but yesterday against the Reds, they went with Adolis Garcia in the 2-hole.
I did not like that.
Yes, which made me kind of think like, what is does this team have an ideal batting lineup? Is there something that is an ideal lineup? You guys are laughing.
Turner, Schwarber, and Harper.
Yeah, and then you fill in the rest. I'm kind of with Oscar on this one.
Okay, but I want to ask you that. Is that the ideal, Turner, Schwarber, Harper? Is there a different configuration of those three guys that you would like to see?
I mean, who, Mike? Who? And then the other problem is March. Let's say March and Stott, right? That they're playing a little better. Let's say you want to bring them up in the order. They're all lefties.
Yep.
I mean, that's a problem. They're lefties. And then you're not going to move Schwarber and Harper. I mean,
that's where I'm at, right? You're not moving Turner. Schwarber's crushing in the 2-hole. Harper's crushing in the 3-hole.
You can't.
You're stuck because you don't have a right-handed bat.
You're
stuck.
Would you rather see Harper hit 2 and Schwarber hit 3 and see what Harper looks like? Don't
break what ain't broken. Don't break what ain't broken. I mean, you can't. Those two guys are.
And see what Harper looks like with Schwarber protecting him.
Does Harper even want to hit 2? I don't even think
he
likes it.
He doesn't like being 2.
Yeah, I don't understand that whole mind of thinking. Like, I just don't like hitting in this spot of the order. Like, hey, you're getting extra at bats. You're getting more times up. But the premise that I'm wondering, I want to get your guys' thoughts on, is if Harper, who's going very good right now, had Schwarber protecting him instead of Bohm.
I mean, right now, Bohm's helping them.
How long?
I agree. I mean, look, you got to play the hot hand.
I agree with you. But, but for how long? But, yeah.
You have to play the hot hand. That's kind of the reality and the bottom line. And I mean that's kind of the hand that you're being dealt. Look, the only thing that I think about, and I've always thought about, you need to split the 2 lefties. But look, if the guys are hitting 1,000 OPS and the other one hitting 900 OPS, you ain't touching that. I mean, you can't.
It's funny when Bohm's hitting, all of a sudden it looks a little better, right? Because Bohm can back clean up. You can put Marsh 5th where he should be. You can put Stott 6th, and then you kind of fill out the rest. But if Bohm's not hitting, this whole thing is it's a mess.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, and listen, we all know Bohm's limitations, and I don't think anybody listening to this or watching this thinks that Bohm should be hitting in the 4-hole, but on this team, he's all they really got right now. But I just was wondering, I wouldn't mind seeing Bohm hit in the 2-hole or the 3-hole and separate those 2 lefties.
I mean,
I would have hit Bohm second yesterday, by the way. That's what I would have.
Yeah, you could lead off with Schwarber and then having Alec Bohm second, Harper third, and then move Turner to 4th and see if you can get anything. I mean, can wake up Turner is not waking up. I mean, and I'm very concerned about that. I mean, we've had.
Can you imagine this fan base if Trey Turner was the cleanup hitter?
I mean, look. The guy, we play 16 series, and the guy has a less than 600 OPS.
It's
I mean,
crazy,
the average
right?
MLB is 720, 730. He has
By the way, Oscar,
600 OPS.
By the way, Oscar, to add to your season point, you do seasons and like weeks. I do the month. It's Memorial Day, and Trey Turner has these numbers.
You talk about moving the pole. I'm not moving no pole. The pole is always there. The question is, what are you going to do with the pole that you have? And I'm telling you right now, that mountain is going to climb on this team, and we're going to see who the real Phillies are. Can the Phillies play the San Diego Padres? They couldn't play the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Cubs. And I understand when this happened and the team was on a slump and all that. Now, the bigger question is coming. Look, I love Wheeler and I love Sanchez. I mean, having those two guys there is a guaranteed for any team. Very few teams have a 1 and 2 like those two guys. The bigger question is, are we going to hit? Are we going to play defense? And the 3, 4, 5 pitcher on this starting rotation are going to deliver as well as the bullpen, which we know has some issues.
This is my issue with saying this is who the Phillies are. Like, say they go 7-5 over the next 12, right? Saying who they are. Well,
I mean, I wouldn't mind going 7-5. I'll take it. I mean, I'll take 7-5.
Exactly. But saying who they are, like just being like that. 2 years ago, they were by far the best team in baseball at this time. What did it end up doing? Nothing. It's just getting to this dance at this point.
Yeah, the other thing we didn't talk about in the Red Series, we had our 3rd, 4th, and 5th hitter pitching. So against Cleveland, we're gonna have tomorrow. I mean, we're gonna have Wheeler and Sanchez pitching. Which is going to be
but then it's going to flip against the Padres, and you're really not going to see Wheeler and Sanchez against the Padres. They're going to be available against the Dodgers, which is going to be a lot
so
of
those
fun.
are things that we're going to have to pay very close attention to. But I'm telling you, the mountain is climbing.
This is why Aaron Nola has to figure it out, because you are getting momentum from Andrew Painter. You're getting momentum from Jesus Cesar. You know what Wheeler and Sanchez, like 4 of the 5 nights, you feel really, really good about your team winning. But if you want a long winning streak like Oscar and I talk about, Aaron Nola's got to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, they have Sanchez, Wheeler, and Painter going this weekend against Cleveland. Luzardo, Nola, and Sanchez scheduled for the San Diego series. Wheeler, Painter, and Luzardo against the Dodgers in the end of the month.
I think we're facing Otani, by the way. Otani has 0.74 ERA.
No Otani. Otani is not scheduled for that series.
Saturday or Sunday. That Saturday or Sunday, I think he's going to be pitching. I mean, that's according to I run the numbers when he might pitch, and I think either Saturday or Sunday we might be getting him.
All right, well, they have right now.
How is baseball going to manipulate this so Otani wins the Cy Young?
Oh, my.
Well, he's got an 0.73 ERA right now. By the way,
right now,
the
how
Dodgers.
many innings does he have?
That I don't know, but
he pitches 5 innings. They're only allowing him to pitch 5 innings right now.
That's why I get so mad at that stuff. Like, look, I'm as impressed as anybody on this planet that he does what he does at such a high level. But if you're going to put him in a Cy Young race against Paul Skeens, Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, you better be pitching 7. I'm sorry. I'm tired of this Corbin Burns hitting crap.
Does Skeens even pitch 7?
He does at times.
Well, remember, in Japan, they pitch every 7 days. I mean, that's when they pitch. I mean, that's kind of the reality.
That's a good point. I don't think people realize that in Japan it's every 7.
That's how they pitch. Hey, Mike, I just wanted to mention that our friend Foley's, the Phillies Sports Shop at 22nd and South is open Thursday to Sunday this weekend. This long weekend is going to be with us. And you can, it's on 22 and South. Our friend John Foley, part of the family, is there doing his magic. And you can always go to FoleyOnSouth.com to go and see all the great stuff. I mean, Jeff is getting a jersey. I'm getting a signed baseball by Chase Utley. I mean, look, all the wonderful stuff. So, Mike, you haven't said what you want. What do you want? What's your dream, Mike? What's your dream?
Yeah,
Mike Smith baseball or what?
I'm going to have to peruse the shop and see what they got there. By the way, for that Dodgers series, they do have their starters announced. I don't know if that's going to be the same, but Robleski, Sasaki, and Yamamoto are the 3 that are lined up.
The Phillies offense is not going to score against these guys.
Look, Yamamoto and Otani is what we have with Sanchi and with Wheeler. So fasten your seatbelts. This is gonna get fun in the next few days.
So if the Phillies were able to get Yamamoto, this Aaron Nola problem would have been solved.
Oh, man.
They tried. They tried. All right,
Oh,
boys.
they
There's our
tried.
Phillies fastball for this Thursday edition here on the Sports Bash Live. We do Phillies fastball each and every day on all our social media platforms. Check us out, and we'll be back tomorrow with some more Phillies fastball. Everything you need to know about the Phils. Thanks, boys.
Thank you.
All right, there's Oscar and Jeff for today's Phillies fastball on the Sports Bash. And, we had a lot of interesting debates there, but one of them is, do they have an ideal lineup? Doesn't seem so. Doesn't seem that they have that ideal lineup to put together. We'll do more Phils later on in the show, but coming up next, you will hear from the Eagles offensive coordinator Sean Mannion for the first time. He is speaking to the media next. All right, 3:33. You're going to hear from Sean Mannion in just a second. This hour of the show brought to you by Broadley's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, the trusted source for plumbing, heating, service, and installation. 609-390-3907. For the first time since he's been hired, this is Eagles' new offensive coordinator, Sean Mannion, right now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
So when you come in here for the first time and start a relationship with Jalen, how does that process work? Like getting to know a guy, what he likes to do. How did you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, I think it starts really just connecting with him on a personal level. Get to know him, get to know kind of what his interests are, what makes him tick. And then once you start to kind of get to know a guy on a personal level, I think the football connection becomes pretty easy. It's been a great process with Jalen. He's been a pleasure to work with, and really since I got the job, being able to connect with him on a personal level and then on a football level has been great.
What do you want the identity of the offense to be?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we want our offense to look like is we talk about play style a lot. Playing with great effort, great physicality, being great teammates. So I think it's when you turn on the tape, what does the Eagles offense look like? Those are the things we really want to stand out, just as a broad strokes.
What was the interview process?
Made about the type of scheme you might run, but I was wondering how you balance what scheme you believe in versus what you think is best for the players you have on board.
Yeah, obviously there's things I believe in, and there's things that schematically I have a background in, but ultimately it's going to be a blend, and it's constantly going to evolve, and it's all with that exact goal in mind that you just said, right? It's about maximizing things for the players. How do we make the Eagles the best team we can be? How do we make the Eagles offense the best it can be? And how do we put all of our players in a position to really, really succeed and maximize their strengths?
How much of a learning process is it going to be for Jalen? Because he's had a bunch of different coordinators, obviously, during his career. Like, is this kind of starting over for him again, or what's that like?
Yeah, I think Jalen's been outstanding in the meetings, and I think having gone through multiple coordinators and stuff, you can tell he's a really capable learner, and that's been really fun to work with on a daily basis. I think there's always going to be some degree of connection, and like I said, it's a blend of all the things that he's really thrived in here, and some of the new things we're bringing to the table. But it's been a great process to get to really build this thing from the ground up with him and with our staff, and I think we're really being deliberate with the teaching and building this thing with a strong foundation, because it's constantly being built, it's constantly evolving. We're always looking at how can we make this better. So that process has been great so far.
What was the interview process like for you getting this job, and how do you know that you're ready for this big of a jump in your career?
Yeah, I was at the East West Shrine game and got an interview virtually, and I felt like we just really hit it off right away. Felt great about the football conversations and getting to connect with Nick and Howie and Mr. Lurie and all the people involved. There's a lot of people involved on the interview and things like that. But from there, came in here for an in-person interview, and again, it was just even more validating getting to be in the building and get to have further discussion. And it came together kind of from there, and felt like it was a great fit for me, great fit for my family, great fit in terms of the football side of things here. And really excited. In terms of being ready for it, I think I lean on all my experiences. Obviously my years in Green Bay, my years as a player. You're learning things constantly along the way. I was fortunate to play for a while and play for a lot of great coaches, and even as a player, I knew this is what I wanted to do next. I knew I was going to get into coaching, so I was always had that in mind as I'm learning things. How am I going to use this someday from a coaching perspective? And so I've been really fortunate to work with a lot of great coaches and pick up a lot of things along the way, and always kind of attacked it with the end in mind, in terms of knowing someday I'm going to get into coaching. Someday I hope to become a play caller. How am I going to use this? And so I really leaned into that throughout my career and learned a lot along the way.
How early in your...
What was attractive about this job, and what stood out to you? You mentioned some of the interactions you had with Nick and Jeffrey. What stood out during those interactions?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, the Eagles have been an outstanding organization, top to bottom. You know that from afar, just with the results on the field and the culture and the kind of system of excellence that they've built here. And then, getting to talk with Nick and see the way he views the game, see the way he views, building a program and running an organization and all the things that we really value here, right? Tough, detailed together. You could just tell it was a great fit, and it was very much in perfect alignment with how I view the game as well. So I think once you get to dive into those football discussions, all the things that you know about the organization from afar become validated once you kind of see behind the curtain. And it was a great fit. I felt like we really hit it off from the start, and really with all the people in the organizations, it's been a great experience.
How excited are you to work with Mekhi Lemon, and what might he look like in your offense?
Sorry, you repeat the question more?
How excited are you to work with Mekhi Lemon, and what might he look like in your offense?
Yeah, Mekhi's been a lot of fun to work with. Really excited to bring him on board, and I think the way he works at practice is really impressive. He's a tremendous young talent, but even just out at practice, you can see he practices really hard. He studies hard. He really takes a ton of pride in all the little details, and that's a sign of a true pro. And he's just getting started on that journey. But with his degree of talent and the way he's been working, I really think he's going to do a lot of great stuff for us now and in the future as well. His development's going to be great. But really excited about him. All the things we saw at SC, right? Catches the ball really well, good after the catch, plays with toughness. That's something that Nick really has built this program around, and something that I really resonated with me. And Mekhi's a good example of that. And like I said, the way he's wired out of practice, you can tell he's going to be a great player, and we're excited to have him.
Sean, what made Ryan Mahaffey the logical choice to step in and coordinate the run game?
Yeah, me and Ryan obviously have worked together, and I think some of the things that we're bringing, Ryan has a background in, and his background is unique, right? He's been with the offensive line for a lot of time. He's been with the receiver group, and ultimately, our run game, our whole offense as a whole is a collaborative process. It's really being built by all of us, and Ryan's a very detailed guy. He understands this. He understands the schematic elements. He knows how all the pieces fit. Having worked with the blocking unit with the offensive line, having worked with the receiving group, because we all have a hand in the run game. And he's a tremendous teacher, detail-oriented. He's going to be a great fit for that role.
Vic had mentioned you were interested in getting Chris Cooper to be the offensive line coach. What stood out about him?
Yeah, I first was with Chris as a player when he was in Minnesota, and you could just tell he's a great teacher, detailed. Obviously has a very unique background, having played a long time in the NFL. I think the way he's going to be able to connect with all of our players, especially a veteran group of guys, with our group specifically, it's going to be a great fit for us. But he's a great teacher, great communicator, really good at coaching the fundamentals. Understands a wide variety of scheme and some of the things that we want to do. So he's been a great fit, and really excited to have Coop on board. I could tell when I first met him, I was like, this guy really knows football. He really knows how to teach, and he really knows fundamentals. And ultimately, I'm a big believer. Coaching is teaching in its truest sense. And I pride myself on being a good teacher. And I think you asked about Ryan, you asked about Coop. Really all the people that we have on staff, I really feel great about our group collectively, because it's people who know how to teach, are detailed, they work hard, and they're great high character people. That's exactly who you want to work with on a daily basis. Coop's certainly the embodiment of that.
Sean, how's it going to work with in terms of verbiage? Is it basically your language coming in that everybody learns, or is it going to be different from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Kind of like I spoke to before, it's a blend. It's a blend, and obviously there's things schematically that we're bringing. There's things that the Eagles' offense has really thrived with doing in the years past. So, in terms of the verbiage, the terminology, it's a process of seeing, hey, what makes sense to keep. What are things that, with some of the new changes coming in, need to change? So that's something we've looked at really from day one, understanding kind of the background of the scheme here. What are some of the things we want to add? What are the things we want to tweak? And how do we build kind of the language of our offense? But that's been a great process. It's there's elements that are new, and there's elements, that will remain in terms of terminology. But that process has been a lot of fun, because ultimately, like I said before, it's all about bringing something to the table, and then how can we continue to make it better? How do we continue to build it, streamline things? And that's really the whole process of the language of the offense, is really a good example of kind of where that takes place.
Back to Jalen, what is your evaluation of Jalen's skill set and how it's going to lend itself to the scheme?
Yeah, Jalen's been awesome. I really think he can do anything we ask of him. He's accurate. He's a great athlete. He really attacks the fundamentals. That's what's been really fun to watch these last 2 weeks of phase 2. He's always coming, wanting more things to work on, wanting more things regarding fundamentals, timing, understanding the scheme. he's hungry for more. And those are the guys that are really fun to work with. In terms of skill set, though, he has great arm strength, great accuracy, obviously a tremendous athlete, and he really attacks the game. He has a great process in the meetings. He always asks really thought-provoking questions. He's detailed and attacks his fundamentals. He's always a guy who stays after practice and is working on things. Those are the guys you love to work with.
So the wide receiver room in general, what's your vision for that group? Howie earlier this offseason called it a basketball team of versatility. What do you see as the vision for that passing game?
Yeah, it's a really exciting group. Obviously, we kind of talked about Mackay. Smitty's been awesome, and it's a really fun group. I really look at all of these, all of our position groups. It's our offense is not about any one piece. It's how we all fit together. And the wide receiver group specifically has been a lot of fun. I think we have a lot of guys with complementary skill sets. They're tough. They compete every day at practice. They really attack the fundamentals, catching the football, yards after catch, all those things. So really excited about that group and how they fit with one another, and then how they fit with the larger picture of the offense.
As a play caller, how do you compensate for the lack of experience, and who are the influences in your career that you take from?
Yeah, I think, like I kind of alluded to before, I know, I've always been kind of working towards, the hope of getting the opportunity to do this. So, even in Green Bay, you're always going through, as a quarterback coach, you're saying, all right, what calls do I have to have Jordan Love ready for? You're kind of thinking through the process of the game throughout the week. What's Matt going to look to call here? What's my favorite third down call? So you're always kind of taking yourself through that process mentally. It was the same thing as a player. You're saying, hey, what's my favorite, call in the high red zone? Hey, if it's a high blitz game, what's my favorite call? What am I going to come to the sideline and be, hey, can I get this one on our next kind of third and medium where you might be getting a lot of pressure? So you're always taking yourself through that process, kind of flexing those muscles. And then even now, scripting practice, you're still going through that same operation. Hey, it's 1st and 10, it's 2nd and 8, it's 3rd and 8. All right, what are the things that I really want us to get work on for those specific situations? So you're always putting yourself through those paces. And then, your other question about some of my influences, I think it really, for me, starts with my dad. My dad was a longtime high school football coach, been around the game my entire life. He's a teacher. My mom's a teacher. You can kind of hear me talk about the teaching influence a lot when it comes to coaching, but just the drive, the work ethic, the relationships with the players, the commitment to fundamentals. My dad was a huge influence on me there. My college coach, Mike Riley, longtime coach at Oregon State, just a great leader of men, great communicator, and then obviously, Matt LaFleur. He gave me my first job in this league, and I'll always be grateful to him for that. I learned a ton from him as a player. I learned a ton from him as a coach. He's a tremendous coach, a great man, a great leader. Learned a ton from him, and it's been a lot of fun working with Nick. Nick's an outstanding coach. He's built an unbelievable program here. He really has total and absolute commitment to the things that are important to winning. Stresses them all the time. Is a great communicator, a great leader for our organization. And I know I'm only, a few months in with Nick, but I've already learned a ton, and I can't wait to keep learning from him, because he's a tremendous resource for me. He's a tremendous leader of this organization, and it's been great so far, and it's going to be great moving forward.
A lot of the players and coaches that have worked around you during your playing career and as a coach talk about the importance that you put on footwork for the quarterback position. I guess, what is it about the system that you're installing that makes footwork so key, and what are some of the other fundamentals for the position that you really harp on? Yeah, it's a great question. I think, the quarterback position, there's so many things that go into it, right? And you asked about footwork. I think everything has a predetermined timing and rhythm to the play. And I think it's really installing a scheme that has proper timing and proper rhythm in terms of how the different elements involved in the concept work with one another. So making sure that the timing of one route marries with the timing of another route. And then you train the quarterback to really understand that and listen to his feet. That's something that we talk about. If your footwork is sound and your rhythm's good, it's just going to feel like the ball wants to come out, right? And then if it's not, then you move on. And so those are all the things that go into training quarterbacks. But it really starts with the schematic element. How do we make sure all the
different route distribution, timing, or, using you're moving people around, but how do we make sure that the timing of the play is sound? And then how do we train the quarterback to understand what that timing is and how to best operate within it?
Sean, you mentioned Jalen can do everything with his skill set. He's been a really good running quarterback throughout his career, not as much last year, that number went down. When you envision using him next year, how important is it for you to get him back to being a threat in the running game?
Yeah, Jalen has a unique skill set in that way. So that'll certainly be a part of what we do. But we're looking, again, at all areas as an offense to really attack defenses on a weekly basis. He is uniquely skilled in that way. That will be a part of it. But it won't be the only part of it. Again, it's going to be a system that we're building and constantly looking to add, evolve. How do we tweak things? How do we make it better at all times? That's certainly something that he's done a really nice job of. It's something that makes him unique and makes him such a unique talent. So it'll be a part of that. And on all the other parts of his game too, we're going to lean into as well.
The work ethic, Sean, and you're talking to some of the guys who've been around, they all sort of talk about you're one of the hardest workers they've ever been around. How much of a point of pride is that, and where does that come from?
Yeah, I that's a very high compliment for people to give me. It's something I've really prided myself on my whole life. And again, talking about my dad as an influence, he's a tremendous hard worker. I just think, it doesn't really feel like work when you love it. This is a tremendous opportunity. I'm so grateful to Mr. Lurie and Howie and Nick for trusting me with this. And I'm going to attack it every day with relentless effort and energy and positivity. And, it's one of those things that when you really love football, which I absolutely love football, it doesn't feel like work and the hours don't feel long because you really enjoy what you get to do every day. It makes it a lot of fun.
You mentioned your dad. I think I saw a story where you might have been 7 years old or something. You went to one of his games and you kept notes on a legal pad and showed them to him, and then gave you the legal pad years later. Is that true? I mean, can you give us a few more details about that?
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. My dad, as a high school coach, you'd go and he would go and watch his next opponent if they had maybe a summer passing league tournament or something, and just see what they were running. So he would always keep notes on a yellow legal pad. So at some point when I was a kid, I must have been 6 or 7 years old. I brought one and I was taking notes and drawing plays. And then when I actually got my first coaching job with the Packers as a gift, he framed it for me. So I still have it in my house. It's pretty cool. The scheme has evolved since then, I will say, but it was a really cool special gift that he kept. And now, with my kids, I'm keeping everything. I'm keeping all that stuff because it was really special for him to keep that for me. And hopefully one day I'll have a chance to pass it on to my girls or to my son.
You mentioned some of the coaches who have influenced your, ability to get into coaching and everything. What about quarterbacks that you might have played with or played behind or played against? I mean, were any of them a really big influence on you as far as becoming a coach? Yeah, absolutely. I've been really fortunate, to be around a lot of really great influences that have made me who I am today. Obviously being with Jared Goff in LA, tremendous accuracy, anticipation, a decisive player. Kirk Cousins, is someone I absolutely, kind of my next stop in my playing career in Minnesota, tremendous accuracy, tremendous anticipation, toughness, an absolute professional in terms of how you attack a week of preparation, just a really great competitor. I really can't speak more highly of Kirk and our time together. And then, other guys along the way, Geno, I think Geno Smith, one of my teammates in Seattle, Drew Lock, another good example. The resilience that it takes to be a quarterback in this league. Geno obviously had his ups and downs early in his career, and it was really, really cool to see him get another opportunity, and to keep working and keep getting better, that day-to-day improvement. I know Geno would speak about that, hey, it didn't work out initially, but I'm not going to stop getting better. And ultimately, he's gotten more and more opportunities to play. And, Drew's another good example of it. Drew, it was actually a game a few years ago. He hadn't had a chance to play in a while, and I think it was against the Eagles on Monday Night Football. He came back in, and I think there's so many stories in your time as a player that you encounter, not specific to the quarterback position, but
when you ask about quarterback, I think there's lessons you learn from so many different people along the way.
What kind of play caller do you want to, what kind of play caller do you want to be?
Yeah, I want to be someone who is versatile, who is always looking to attack defenses in different ways, is always looking to evolve, and ultimately always looking to maximize the talents of our players.
Yeah, term that Nick used was marrying the run and the pass game. What goes into that? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's absolutely a huge part of what we want to do. We want to make sure that as many different elements of our offense that they fit together, that they look the same, and that they, how do we build this wide array of things that kind of start off of a similar type of look. So I think a lot of it goes into the planning throughout the week, looking back at weeks past, looking back at seasons past. Hey, what are other things we've shown from these type of presentations to the defense, and then being creative, thinking outside the box. That's where I'm really excited about the group of coaches we brought in. Everyone's been bringing outstanding ideas to the table. It's a really group of guys who are very intelligent, very creative, really work at it, study all these different things around the league and college. So again, we can always look to add new elements, but the piece you spoke about of marrying the run game and the pass game is critical to our offense. But it's been a really fun process leaning into that as we're building this thing.
With your background with zone blocking schemes, how is that going in terms of applying that to an offensive line that has size and has been doing vertical in a lot of ways?
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. It's I'm really, really happy with where we're at. Again, 2 weeks on the field with the guys, just finishing phase 2. We're constantly building this thing, and we're 5 weeks into our time with the players, but really, really happy with where we're at. And as you spoke about the offensive line group specifically, and what an awesome group to work with on a daily basis. A ton of talent, a bunch of great guys, great football character. These guys love to work at it. They love to work on their fundamentals. They've really taken a lot of the changes that we've been making. And I feel like they've got a really good understanding of what we're trying to do from a bird's eye perspective as an offense, and then also kind of on the more micro level in terms of the really key fundamentals that make it go. But they've really been leaning into that. And it's a really fun group to get to work with, a talented group and a fun group. And like I said, great football character in that room.
All right, there he is, Sean Mannion, for the first time, and kind of nondescript, if you will. I don't know that anything really stood out at all from Sean Mannion, other than him and Jalen Hurts building this thing from the ground up. Working with him's been awesome. He said he's going to use blend the terminology of the old stuff and the new stuff to try to simplify things for this team. But quite frankly, I don't know that we learned anything about him in that one. We'll see. That's his first time meeting the media. You can tell he was a little nervous throughout that process. However, he'll be on the field for the first time on Tuesday when the Eagles get out to OTAs. We'll be talking about that. But when we come back, football at 4 is on the way. Andrew DiCecco's in the house today, and we'll take a look at his initial Eagles 53. And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Big games, big bets, big screens. Check out the Fanatic Sportsbook. And, of course, Knicks and Cavs tonight, game number 2. You can check out that and all of the Phillies action all season long and more at the Fanatic Sportsbook. We heard from the coordinators earlier today. We'll dive into that a little bit later on. Sean Mannion speaking for the first time. We'll hear more about that later on. But I do want to look at Andrew DiCecco over at InsideTheBirds.com. He has his initial 53-man roster projections with some eye-opening things that I thought anyway on this list, Andrew. And let's dive right into it on this Memorial Day weekend, Thursday. Welcome back, man. And at the quarterback spot, I don't see Tanner McKee's name on your 53-man roster. I imagine you believe he will be traded.
Hey, Mike, great to be with you. So my thought process here is I understand that Howie Roseman mentioned the team would be open to carrying 4 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. But as I was putting this together, the puzzle pieces didn't necessarily fit. They have an abundance of talent. And as you'll probably outline later on, I had to go heavier in some defensive areas. But that being said, Tanner McKee holds a lot of value inside that Eagles building. They're not just going to give him away. But I just tend to think that whether it's a team that's not overly enthused with their quarterback situation or an injury arises, you're going to look to the Philadelphia Eagles and know that Tanner McKee has starting upside. That's how he's viewed around the league. He carries more value than Andy Dalton, and I just imagine that could be a situation. It's just hard for me to envision them carrying 4 quarterbacks. So naturally, in this exercise anyway, I looked for the one that had the most value, and it just kind of made sense to me.
Yeah, McKee as the guy out. Dalton and Cole Payton, he's an interesting guy. He was drafted, and many people look at him as kind of like a Swiss Army knife thing. So it would be interesting to see if the Eagles, in fact, do have a role for him this season.
Yeah, Cole Payton's interesting because while it shouldn't be just assured that he's going to make the roster, because it's worth pointing out that Kyle McCord, who fell short of making the Eagles 53, was drafted just three picks later. Cole Payton gives you something different, and the athleticism, the ability to create yards with his legs, maybe you have some sub packages with him in mind. I just think he brings a little bit more of an enticing skill set to the table. Now, he is still unrefined as a passer. That's going to have to get cleaned up in training camp mechanics, pocket awareness, and all those things. But without having seen any of these players take so much as a training camp practice, that's kind of where my thought is, that they're going to they understand that it's going to be a little bit of a development phase here for Cole Payton, and that factored into my decision.
All right, we're looking at Andrew's 53 initial roster with OTAs, not training camp yet. I don't want to rush you back to work there, Andrew, but OTAs on Tuesdays. Let's go to the running back room. Saquon Barkley, as you mentioned in the article, he's had a big workload. How do Bigsby and Shipley help with that this season?
Yeah, Saquon Barkley had, if you're combining the 2 previous seasons, 625 carries. So a lot of tread on the tires for a 29-year-old running back. If you watched the way that he played, I know that the numbers don't necessarily indicate it, but I don't view Saquon Barkley as a player who had any sort of drop-off or anything like that. But sometimes that can be sudden for that position. And I think to preserve that, you want to involve Tank Bigsby a little bit more, who had just 58 carries in 16 games with the Eagles. But he gives you a really good 1-2 punch and the ability to get downhill and create his own hole. He's an unconventional runner, but I'm expecting the Eagles this year to incorporate Tank a little bit more as a runner. And then you have Will Shipley, and I understand that he hasn't been utilized all that much over his past 2 years. If you were using training camp last summer as a barometer, one would expect that Shipley would have had somewhat of a role offensively. He was featured quite a bit as a receiver. That didn't manifest in the regular season. But in this offense with Sean Mannion, where you're expecting to see a shift schematically in the run designs and all of that, outside zone stretches, that to me would tend to favor what Shipley can do best. And this offense, I think you're going to see a little bit more of the running back incorporated into the passing game, which is where Shipley stands apart. he offers a different skill set than the other two players. And so for balance purposes and just to really maximize the skill set on the roster, to me, it would make sense to give him a little bit of a role to kind of work off of.
All right, Andrew, let's go to your wide receiver room. There is no A.J. Brown. We all expect him to be traded. So 6 guys. What's left with no A.J. Brown?
Yeah, Ian Wicks, you have Darius Cooper, Johnny Wilson, and I have Hollywood Brown as well. They have a lot of different types of players. They have the vertical element incorporated with Hollywood Brown. Jalen Hurts throws a really nasty deep ball, so I imagine they're going to accentuate what Hollywood Brown can in theory do well. And I say in theory because the other teams that he's been a part of haven't really tapped into that element of his game, but he gives you some variety. Mekhi Lemon, to me, is going to be a chain mover, someone who can slip tackles and create yards after the catch, keep the offense on schedule. Devontae Smith is a player that I think stands to benefit the most from this new offense, and I do believe that he's more than capable of being a number one receiver. He was in 2021, let's not forget, had 104 targets that year, fell just shy of reaching 1,000, but he's a different player, and this offense has a lot more talent around him to support that. And Dontavian Wicks is a player who's very familiar with the system, having spent time with Sean Mannion and Ryan Mahaffey and being in Green Bay. I think that should help him get off to a faster start, maybe give him a leg up. He has a different body type at 6'1", 206, more of an underneath option, but they all have, the top 3 guys anyway, the same skill set in that they are razor-sharp route runners and know how to separate the top of routes, which is imperative for this timing-based offense. So I like this group quite a bit, and I decided to keep Johnny Wilson on because he has a different type of dimension, being 6'6". They missed his blocking prowess last season. Now we'll have to see how he responds after a year off, having the knee leg injury that he suffered in training camp that kept him out of last season. But I think all things equal right now, I like what he can bring, especially in terms of special teams.
All right, to Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. We're looking at his initial 53-man roster. OTAs start on Tuesday. By the way, in that group, no A.J. Brown, no Elijah Moore, no Britton Covey, no Danny Gray, no Quez Watkins. But Covey, obviously that would mean they need to try to find someone to return punts. We'll get to that as well. Let's look at tight end because this has been a spot that's been kind of a question mark behind Dallas Goedert. Does it turn into a strength?
I think so. Now, the Eagles strive for more balance in the tight end room. They were very pass receiving centric last year with Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra leading the charge there. And they made it very clear in the offseason, Howie Roseman, that they were seeking more balance. So you have Dallas Goedert, who did decline as a blocker last season, but he established career highs in receptions with 60 and touchdowns with 11. Knowing Sean Mannion and the background knowing the background that he's coming from, one could expect that the tight ends are going to be heavily involved in the offense. And Eli Stowers, while he doesn't give you much as a blocker right now, he's still a work in progress there. You like the athleticism and the potential to have that alignment versatility that can create mismatches. I don't know how heavily utilized he'll be this season, but he represents the future. And then I kept Cameron Latu on there because Cameron Latu is a balance. He has a balanced skill set. He was a fullback last season, so you like the blocking upside that he provides, but he's also a special teams stalwart. I think he's kind of getting lost in the mix a little bit, but the Eagles like him, and I also kept Johnny Munt, and that was after some careful consideration because previously I was of the belief that you could release Johnny Munt and get him on the practice squad. He's 31 years old, a one-dimensional player, and because of that, I don't foresee teams clamoring to get him onto their roster, but the Eagles greatly struggled when it came to inline blocking at that position last year. And when you have a player like that that's solely focused on that area, I think you want to find a way to keep him on the roster.
All right, Andrew, let's take a look at the offensive line where obviously they had some problems last year, but the same 5 plus Fred Johnson and Drew Kendall, it seems, and Cameron Williams, seems like they need to get their act together. There's not new faces coming in here, at least new ones that were going to be taking over and playing a big role.
Yeah, when you look at, beyond the starting five, there's questions because there's a lot of youth there, a lot of inexperience, aside from Fred Johnson. But what I can tell you about Drew Kendall, the Eagles are happy with him, with his development. I think he did a nice job when pressed into service last season in that season finale. He learned under Brett Toth. I would often see them conversing in the locker room. He sort of took him under his wing, and he's, for all intents and purposes, going to have to fulfill that role. I think he also gives you game day value as a guard, potentially, though center is his position of trade. Then you have the rookies like Markel Bell, who's still probably a year away. You have Micah Morris, who might make the roster by default because they don't have a lot of surefire reserve guards. Plus, he's a sixth-round pick with some athletic upside. So if you're the Eagles, if he shows anything in camp, you're going to want to see that through. So that's and then I went with Cameron Williams. I was torn between him and Miles Hinton, who they both drafted on day 3 last year. But I have Cameron Williams rated slightly above Miles Hinton. He's 2 years younger. And when he was pressed into service in the season finale, he performed far better than anyone could have expected. So I think you like the developmental qualities. He still has he's a raw talent, and maybe with the year in the building and in the film room, he responds in training camp and really takes that job.
All right, that is a look at the offense. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball and take a look at defensive. Actually, one thing I do want to mention, out for you on the line, Miles Hinton, guy they drafted. Willie Lampkin, that was a guy who brought a little bit of controversy last year. So those guys possibly out, according to Andrew's initial. We're having some fun on this Memorial Day Thursday. Let's go to defense. Defensive tackle, Carter Davis, Ojomo, Byron Young, Ty Robinson, and Bernard. The draft choice, you think that he has a shot to stick around. I don't know if he gets to the active roster, but, man, what a story he would be to add to this group of guys.
Yeah, I don't know if he gets to the active roster on game day, but like they did with Jordan Mailata in 2018, I could foresee the Eagles abiding by the same school of thought by keeping him on the roster and stashing him on the back end. He's in meetings, he's involved, he's on the sideline during games, and that could help bring him along with his development because this is a player you don't want to part with. I understand that he's their IPP exemption and all that, but I kind of look at how they handled the Jordan Mailata situation, and with a player with this kind of talent and ability, and knowing how bullish the Eagles are on rallying around him and supporting him, they understand that this is going to be a multi-year process, and they're committed to that. So I have him sticking around. Ty Robinson, though, it's a big offseason for him. The Eagles drafted him in the 4th round. He didn't do a lot last season, played in 11 games, 104 snaps. But if you don't have the trust of Vic Fangio, if they don't have the confidence, the coaching staff, to put you out there and understand that you're going to be able to be, to carry out your assignments, or if you're missing something, you're not going to be out there. So, kind of looking at it long-term picture here, Byron Young's in the final year of his rookie deal. Moro Jomo's in the final year of his rookie deal. They need Ty Robinson to step up and give them quality depth because this defensive line room could look a lot different next season.
One guy out, by the way, Gabe Hall, guy who was a high draft choice that's been around for a couple of years, 3rd-round pick, I believe, in Vegas, right? He was with Vegas?
Yes, he was. And the Eagles like him a little bit. They seem to really trust him. Vic Fangio calls him BY. He leapfrogged Ty Robinson in the pecking order. And it just seems like whenever he's been asked to step in, he's provided some quality snaps.
All right, edge rusher. This is a very interesting group here. Grenard Hunt, Nolan Smith, who got in a little trouble over the weekend, apparently. I don't know how that's going to affect his season. Ebiketie and Brandon Graham. For those of you, Nolan Smith got caught speeding. He was going 137 miles an hour in a 70. It's a little over the speed limit down in Georgia. So that's the group there. You have Brandon Graham back with the Birds.
Yes, I just feel like that reunion feels pretty inevitable. Brandon Graham can still play. He proved that. He played, I think, 116 or 119 snaps, had 3 sacks, half dozen quarterback hits. He gives you interior versatility. So maybe early in the season, if you're not overly impressed with what you've seen from Ty Robinson, Brandon Graham can serve effectively as that 5th defensive tackle. And I'm including Byron Young as the 4th guy there. But yeah, I just think that he still has something left. And if he does, all things equal, he probably gives you a little bit more than you would get from a Keyshawn James newbie who the Eagles drafted in the 7th round. Though he shouldn't be counted out, he's Brandon Graham, 3rd all-time in Eagles sacks, who still has some fuel left in the tank. And I also omitted Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, a 2021 first-round pick. I mean, until I see him out there, he's bounced around a little bit. He spent time with 2 teams last year, and he doesn't have an overwhelming resume in terms of sack production. You like his size and his movement ability, and I think he gives you something against the run. But right now, I kind of view it as Brandon Graham snagging that 5th spot.
All right, another year of BG, it looks like. We'll see. Linebackers, Bond, Campbell, Trotter, Smile, Mondin, 4 guys there. Obviously, Nakobe Dean is out, but I think last year they kept, they keep all 5 last year because Dean was here. Was all 5 of those guys? That means you're cutting down 1?
Nakobe ended up. I think he began on PUP, if I'm remembering correctly.
He did,
and they opened with 4 guys. Ended up with the 5, but. Yeah, I mean, this is a position where I can see them going a little leaner, that knowing that they may have to go heavier elsewhere on the roster. It's a pretty strong quartet of linebackers that they have, and it sounds incredible to say, and we're saying it now for 2 years in a row because the Eagles have often operated with a patchwork philosophy when it comes to that position. But I like what they have. A name to keep an eye on, maybe if you're looking for that 5th guy, would be Chance Campbell, who was on the Eagles practice squad last year. He was a 6th-round pick in 2022 of the Tennessee Titans, overlap there with Eagles linebackers coach Bobby King. He spent the year in the building. He was in meetings. He's familiar with the coaching philosophy of Bobby King. And I don't think it was any surprise that when the Eagles signed Chance Campbell 2 or 3 days before the preseason finale, and they still kept him on the practice squad, you don't have a lot of time to really showcase what you can do. So they obviously had interest and intel in the player. So he's someone that I would keep an eye on for special teams purposes.
All right, Andrew, we'll go down to the cornerback room because this one, you got Mitchell and DeJean, and then there's a lot of new names in here because, for the last couple of years, it seemed like they had a lot of these young guys that had been around and we've been kind of waiting on. Woolen is now here. Jonathan Jones, a free agent veteran player. Kaylee Ringo has been around for a while. And Brandon Johnson, a new name. So let's take a look at that cornerback room because that means Jacorian Bennett not here again. Mac McWilliams, a draft choice. I don't see his name on the list.
Yeah, this was the one that I sort of grappled with, but there's a lot of logic that goes to it. And beyond the top 3, and if Reek Woolen is able to stay consistent and really have that attention to detail that you need to flourish in a Vic Fangio system, I don't think it's hyperbole, Mike, to suggest that the Eagles would have the top 3 corners in football. That's a good situation to be in. Now, Jonathan Jones, to me, and we have to see what he can do when he's on the field because he is 32, I think that's one of the more underrated free agent signings for the Eagles. And to expand, he sort of precludes them from having to turn to Keely Ringo if an injury should arise. And he can give you positional versatility. He can help you on special teams. He's a veteran. He's played in, I think, 144 games, played in 8 postseason games. So you like it, at least on its face, what he can provide as sort of that Isaiah Rodgers type of fill-in. Keely Ringo sticks around solely for special teams. I think the cornerback experiment is probably effectively over. They've given him opportunities over the past couple years. He hasn't run with it, and there's still obvious blemishes to his game that I don't think will be ironed out, such as hip stiffness, inability to locate the football, and things of that nature. But he is a tremendous special teamer, one of the league's best, and widely recognized as such. And then Brandon Johnson, for me, might be the curveball that some kind of raise their eyebrows at, but he can play safety. He cross-trained there last year. He can also play nickelback, which is his position of trade. That's where he began last summer as an undrafted free agent and was on the practice squad, was elevated for the final 3 games, started the season finale at safety, played 23 snaps before he left the game with an ankle injury. I just look at this as a 23-year-old corner who gives you optionality. He's cost-effective, and you might not want to expose that player to waivers.
All right, I like that room. I did like Mac McWilliams. Tough that he did not end up kind of coming to fruition there. I like that draft pick a couple of years ago.
So that was one that, he was my rookie diary subject last year. I got to know him quite a bit. but he cross-trained at outside corner. He's a little undersized. He's probably best suited to be an inside corner, and he doesn't give you that safety versatility. He's also a little bit older, I think a year or so older than Brandon Johnson, and he doesn't really play special teams. They gave him that opportunity, and you can clearly see that the physicality of it when he was put out there at gunner. I can think of that Buccaneers game where he sort of got driven back and out of the play. Not everybody can play special teams. They had Eli Ricks on the roster for a while, and he was really a non-factor on special teams. And if you're a depth corner, you have to be able to do that if you're not providing positional versatility elsewhere.
All right, Andrew, the last spot on this list is probably the spot that has the biggest question marks. It is safety. You've got 4, Makuba Epps, Michael Carter, Cole Wisniewski, the rookie, Andre Sam. I know he's a guy you've talked a lot about during football at 4 over the years. You got him out of here. But those are the 4. You wonder if they will be the 4 on opening day.
Yeah, Michael Carter, the second, is the 4th safety that I have making it. And wouldn't surprise me if things remain the same, if he really makes a push to start for the Eagles. And the way I see it, I think they're still not quite finished addressing that room. And so if there were a player I would remove, it would be Marcus Epps. He's a 30-year-old safety. He began last season on the practice squad, doesn't have the enticing athletic qualities that would compel a team to maybe you have to keep this guy. And he's a vested veteran, so he's not, exposed to waivers. So you could put him on the practice squad as a contingency plan, because I am expecting the Eagles to add another name, so that would leave Drew Makuba, Michael Carter II, Cole Wisniewski, and a player that isn't currently on the roster.
All right, there you go. There's a look at everything. Yeah, no long snapper, though. Is there somebody you have in mind?
Yeah, no long snapper. The Eagles implemented that tactic last summer when they released Charlie Hewlett to get down to 53. Now, Rocco Underwood's an undrafted rookie who's the only long snapper on the roster. We haven't seen him snap. He's a young player. If you waive him, you could probably get him on the practice squad. If not, you can get a veteran and maybe do the 3-game elevation, or if you put somebody on injured reserve once the roster settles, like they did with Miles Hinton, by the way, last summer, maybe you're able to sign that long snapper there. So maybe a new Bernard goes on IR, and all of a sudden you have a roster spot there. But I do expect the Eagles to try to find a way to temporarily lengthen the roster while they try to figure out the long snapper situation.
You got a punt returner in this group?
Not. I mean, there's Hollywood Brown, who in theory could do it. There's not a punt returner by trade, but they can also elevate Britton Covey from the practice squad for a few weeks, like they did last year. They did that where they had Xavier Gibson that they had, and then they eventually went with Britton Covey. So as much as I would love to have put Covey on the roster, I think he probably lands on the practice squad. It's hard to have someone who just returns punts and doesn't contribute on kick coverage, on punt coverage, as a receiver to devote a spot like that on a deep roster. It was hard for me to do.
All right, last week I told you that I was going. I saw Lenny Kravitz last week. Brett Michaels is playing tomorrow night. That's more up your alley. Now, I told you I would try to go, but I'm going to be out of town. Otherwise, you and me would be at Brett Michaels, buddy.
That's right, man. Nothing but a good time.
Tomorrow night, yeah. Poison. I don't know if Poison's playing or just him by himself. It looks like he's playing at Caesars. It's just him, Brett Michaels, by himself tomorrow night. That's all your stuff, man. Enjoy the weekend, a little time off, and then Tuesday, Eagle OTAs. We'll talk about it during Football at 4 next week right here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Great breakdown, and read his entire 53-man roster breakdown. Andrew DiCecco over at InsideTheBirds.com. And, of course, Inside the Birds Football at 4. It is brought to you by our friends over at the Fanatics Sportsbook and Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Big screens, big bets, game day hits different at Ocean. Learn more, visit OceanAC.com. Matt Wright, Friday, July 24th and July 25th. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We got more to go on this Thursday edition. Don't go anywhere. 97.3 ESPN. All right, we got it tonight. Game 2, Knicks and Cavs. I'll be locked in. Josh, you locked into that, or are you going to the hockey? What do you got?
I'll be locked into Knicks and Cavs. Listen, I'm intrigued by that series for a multitude of reasons, but I think that the biggest reason of all is I want to see the Knicks actually do it. The whole reason why Thibodeau got fired.
Who are you rooting for?
Oh, I'm not really rooting. I'm intrigued to see who fails.
You're not pulling for one over the other?
I want to see who fails. I'm excited because if the Knicks fail, then I'm going to be like, well, why'd you fire Thibodeau? If the Cavs fail, then I'll be like, well, why'd you trade for Harden?
Well, I will say that the Knicks last year were up 2-0 in the series and ended up blowing it with Thibodeau.
Correct.
So I don't know.
That's my thing. You fired Thibodeau because he couldn't get you past the finals. Well, if you lose in the finals.
This happens a lot. We know. We always assume that because you didn't do it, that you can't. That doesn't mean you can't. It just means you didn't when you were given the opportunities to.
Right.
You might, like, if Mike Brown doesn't get past this, Mike Brown was, he's been with the Lakers and the Cavs, and he's been all over the place, this guy.
Well,
he's been fired many times because he was perceived as a guy that couldn't get it done.
Which is why this whole thing to me is funny. Because it's like, remember Mike Brown, you mentioned, he first started with the Cavs, Lakers job. Then he was in Golden State for all those years, remember? As the assistant.
He was there for a while, yep.
So it's like, did he learn from that job? Did he not learn? I don't know.
Well, we'll see. Tonight, I'm watching 97.3 ESPN's coverage begins at 7:30. Tonight at 5, our buddy Kevin Cooney. He's got a new Substack called The Cooney Report, and this one's going to be fun. Stick around for this. He has, Josh, this is like right up your alley, things that are going on in Philly sports right now that he can't stand.
So basically, it's Kevin Cooney's version of Family Guy's What Grinds My Gears?
Yeah, pretty much. These are things in Philly sports he would get rid of, I should say. Like, do you have a list of things? Like Daryl Morey, you would get rid of him. Not you.
Maybe
I'm talking about the people
out there. I mean, I would need some time to think of. I'm curious what Kevin's list is because
I read it this morning.
Kevin's also covered pretty much all the teams in the city.
Kevin is I grew up reading Kevin as a baseball guy.
Right.
He's somewhat of a columnist now where, he gives opinions on all the Philly sports teams, but he's a local guy, has been a newspaper writer for, a lot of his career, that he got out of the newspaper somewhat. He's done some radio work, and now he's going Substack, which means he's kind of just giving all of his opinions. And this is where Kevin's at his best, giving all of his opinions. And he came out with this Substack this morning, and you can get the Substack, kevincooney.substack.com. It's free to read. And he said, these are things in Philly sports I would get rid of. So we'll do that at 5 o'clock tonight. But one thing that the Sixers got rid of was Daryl Morey. But listen, people perceive me to be like a Daryl Morey fan per se, which is fine. I like Daryl Morey. I think he did a good job, not a great job. I think he made mistakes. He could have been better. He never won a title. People act like I think he's number one on the depth chart of general managers. That is not the case. But I do feel like Bob Myers walking into this position has a little false gravitas for people. I'm not the biggest like Bob. Now, I have said if you can get Bob Myers, you probably go that route. I do think that perceptually, this move makes sense. Perceptually doesn't always mean reality, though. The perception is Bob Myers won 4 titles. Therefore, Bob Myers is better than Daryl Morey. It goes to what we were just talking about. Mike Brown has never won the title as the head coach. Therefore, he's been fired multiple times, and therefore he's not good enough to do it. That doesn't mean he's not good enough to do it. He just hasn't got the job done yet.
Or he hasn't had the good enough team.
Hasn't had a good enough team. Bob Myers walked into the good enough team.
We'll get into it. I think that it's.
Do you think that Bob Myers automatically changes things and makes this organization better run?
I think he has an opportunity to do certain things differently. To me, it's how when the Phillies fired Rob Thompson and then Don Mattingly took the job, and the very day he says, well, I'm going to make some small changes, but they might not be noticeable if you're not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is kind of the Bob Meyer impact.
Here's what I'll say. If Bob Myers is a fly-by-nighter, in other words, he's not there every day, you go back to the same problems that this organization had for a while, that nobody was running the team day to day. And the one thing that Morey gave this team was a little stability at that position where he was the decision maker and he was the guy in charge.
And it was stability, not just because in the idea that he had the job, Mike. He also had stability because he was someone who had the resume to say he's not going to mess it up, shall we say.
So a couple things here. One, do I think Bob Myers is more accomplished than Daryl Morey? 1,000%. He has 4 NBA titles. Part of the job is the culture that you run, the way your organization is run. He gets all the credit for being the general manager and the president of basketball operations and making sure that organization was well run. He gets the check mark there, 100%. Is he the sole reason they won? Because, man, he was such a brilliant architect, a la what's going on right now in Oklahoma City. Sam Presti. I don't think Bob Myers is on that level. And I think the perception from Sixers fans is Bob Myers was the architect of these Warriors championship teams. And I'm here to tell you that was not the case.
It wasn't the case in the way, again, you mentioned Sam Presti. It wasn't the incentive, or I'll use R.C. Buford. R.C. Buford's another one.
He was the other guy. Put it this way. R.C. Buford and Sam Preston had a vision. Presti had a vision and took the vision and made the moves to make that vision a reality. What?
Not the WWE vision.
No. I don't know what that means.
It's a faction in WWE right
Sorry.
now. Paul Heyman's faction, by the way.
But Myers didn't come into an organization with a vision. He walked into an organization that had the foundation there already.
Well, it had part of the foundation. I think
some key parts.
Well, one part, Steph Curry, which is a big part.
The Steph Curry was already there, yes. Now, the Klay Thompson one is a la Morey with Maxey. Myers was the GM when they drafted Klay, but he kind of had just got there.
It was his first year as the man in charge. That was the year they drafted Klay and Draymond
right.
Green.
So if you want to give him credit for Klay and Green, then you kind of got to give Morey the credit for Maxey.
100%.
Because you're the guy that signs off on those picks saying, you know what, I'm going to take your – and that's what I say a good executive does. He doesn't rule with the iron fist. He takes other people's acknowledgement. So I'll give Myers the credit for drafting those two guys, even though it's been kind of speculated that it wasn't really, his say.
Well, and again, I think that's where, I think some of this stuff about both men is unfair. I think that's why the first question they asked Bob Myers in this audio we're going to play is interesting.
Yeah, well, we have some audio. This is a little tit for tat back and forth from years ago. This is from like 10 years ago between Morey and Myers.
And they were both active in their jobs at that time.
Morey's with Houston, Myers with Golden State. And they're at this Sloan kind of analytics conference. And they're both on the stage together.
And I was going to say, this is also shortly after their teams had just played against each other in the conference finals.
This is a small cut. It's been all over. It's been kind of making its way on social media. And it came across my feed. And I thought it was kind of an interesting thing. And the one thing that kind of stands out to me is at the time, Jackie McMullen was the moderator, and she's going over Morey's kind of like resume and that, they had the most wins in the Western Conference over the 3-year span and all this stuff, but they hadn't been able to get it done. And she says, and you're thought to have kind of like, he says, well, that's what the media says. We don't think that we've, exceeded expectations, because she was saying that he's done a good job because they exceeded expectations, Houston.
And also in the same thing, Morey talked about how he gave Bob Myers a compliment. He also said in that same thing, he said, well, Bob didn't think outside the box. He crushed it.
Now, do you take this as playful back and forth or spite?
Both.
Let's take a listen.
All right, if your best player, we'll do this to you. If your best player doesn't exemplify that, your work ethic, how do you instill it in the rest of the team? Is it possible?
Why are we saying about Mike?
Well, because you have a guy that's going to be the MVP again
So you're
this
saying
year.
if he doesn't exemplify, the question was if he doesn't exemplify a good
Right,
work
it's
ethic?
hypothetical. We know that Steph
okay,
does.
So if someone in your team doesn't exemplify, then you got to trade that guy.
All right. So that's interesting. He says, Bob Myers, if your best player doesn't exemplify good work ethic, then you got to trade that guy. So he is now essentially in charge of the Philadelphia 76ers. Does he look at Joel Embiid and say, that's my best player? He does not exemplify hard, tough work ethic. I got to trade that guy.
I don't think so. I don't think Joel has ever been looked at as a guy who doesn't work.
Tell the fans that.
Well, the fans are not in the building.
I'm just saying. Do you think the fans agree that Joel Embiid works hard?
No, I think there's a contingent of fans that think Joel Embiid's
Okay.
a lazy bum.
Just
because he's always
making sure
injured.
that we're on the same page here. So even though you might not think that, and maybe I don't think that, these fans 100% think that Joel Embiid is lazy.
But does Bob Myers think that?
That's the question. And the question that I'm asking is, if Bob Myers does in fact think that Joel is lazy, will he in fact trade him? As he just said there, if your best player does not exemplify hard work, you got to trade that guy. I think that's a very interesting revisionist bite to hear there.
Well, I will say this. If Bob Myers believes what he says, you know who he's never trading for? Zion Williamson.
I don't think he wants to trade for Zion Williamson anyway.
Now, this is where the back and forth comes in because Myers went on to try to explain the reason why he said what he said. And this is where, in the conversation, Daryl Morey, can I call it, Mike? He pushes back. He pushes Myers a little bit to maybe further explain himself.
If the most important person in your organization, player-wise, doesn't work hard, well, let's try someone else.
That is the right question. It's like compared to what? So, like, let's say you didn't get Golden State. You got to take over, pick another team that didn't have Steph Curry.
Right, sure. So,
and you don't have a best player, right? That, like,
if your best player on your team isn't, then I guess you try to bring in somebody that is better, that is
there aren't 30 of them.
Yeah. So this is where Morey kind of makes Myers look a little bit like, dude, you just said something that's idiotic. You want to trade a guy because he's not working hard enough. But what if you're walking into a team that doesn't have a good player? You're just trading the guy away, but what are you getting in return? You're acting like there's 30 Steph Currys out there.
And I think that's where it's one of those nuance where it's like, well, if you hate Morey, you're going to rip Morey for that question. If you like Morey, maybe you're going to like his question because both men are right to me. In this case, Myers is right. There are cases where a guy, no matter how talented and gifted he is, he's hurting your team or he's holding your team back or he's just a bad, for the locker room. But Morey's 100% right as well, where he's saying superstars don't grow on trees, bro. You can't just trade one for another and get the same result.
Morey's insinuating, dude, you're making this sound like it's some easy thing. This guy's lazy. Trade him and go find another guy. He's like, dude, there ain't 30 hardworking superstars in this league. Hence, you got the problem this league has. You got 5 good teams and 25 bad ones.
And I think that's why Morey then brings up a specific example to Myers and again, I don't think this was Morey being like a jerk necessarily, but I think he was making an honest point saying, hey, you made a move and you're well known for making this move, but maybe it wasn't necessarily the move that I would have made. Here's Daryl Morey more with Bob Myers.
If you are faced with that, you try to deal with it front on. And if you can, then you have no choice, right? What's your choice?
Well, it's just
you try to get that good value.
You were talking about depth. I don't want to call you out, but it's again compared to what? But yeah, depth is great in concept, but like, do you spend money on depth to the detriment of having money to go get Andre Iguodala or to go to get you went out and spent on Iguodala is the best example. You spent a lot of money on him. So
we spent probably market value on him.
No, I understand.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one because Myers has indicated that depth is a big deal. And, of course, one of the things that the Sixers have been kind of ripped for right now is they don't have any depth. Well, Morey's looking at him and saying, but wait a second. You just, now at this time right here, he was the guy in charge of the Warriors, and he spends money on Iguodala. And Morey's saying, well, why'd you spend all the money on Iguodala? He's a role player. Instead of getting 3 players, you spent for 1 player. And he's kind of like saying, why didn't you go get 3 players if you think depth is so important? Go get 3 guys for $5 million. And then he really hits them with I'd say a little low blow coming up here in a second. But what's your takeaway from that?
Well, my takeaway is, again, this is another example where I feel like both men are making a great point. Morey's saying, you can't tell me you're going to spend all this money on. Now, again, he's right. Myers, they didn't spend like exorbitant amount of money on Iguodala, but Morey's correct. If you care about depth so much, you take the money that you gave to Iguodala and you just redistribute it across multiple players. Now, Myers' pushback is, well, we got him for market value. We didn't overpay for him. And guess what? Iguodala was a very valuable, important part of that Warriors championship run. So,
and by the way, the problem is now market value is locked in. There is no negotiation.
None.
You want to get Paul George, I can't negotiate with you. His market value was already established.
It's been set and done. Nothing you can do about it. And I think that's where the Morey question is.
Because he signed Iguodala to a 6-year, $80 million contract extension.
And remember, Iguodala was a guy who he got the Finals MVP award. He was a huge piece in your success. He was the guy who guarded the other team's best player in many series. So it's not like they were just giving some random guy in a contract extension, but Morey's correct. If you care about depth, maybe you shuffle that money around.
Well, the first time and then the second time with the Warriors, he signed a 4-year, $48 million deal. After he had been in Denver, he ends up coming back for 4 years, $48 million. So I think that's when Myers ended up signing him, was in that season.
Well, Myers traded for him, I believe. I have to pull up the exact date. Do you have the exact year that Iguodala was traded to the Warriors?
He got traded to the Warriors. Yes, I do have that. He got traded to the Warriors in 2013, and he was there to 2019. And then he came back.
So Myers traded for him.
Yeah, and then he traded for him, but then gave him a 4-year, $48 million extension.
Right.
Yeah. So it was like a sign and trade.
But still, the point is that we're trying to be clear about the timeline of all this stuff, because that's where the real zinger from Daryl Morey comes in, and at the end here, where he kind of really sticks it to Bob at the end here.
This is where Morey gets the 2 points, the takedown.
No, my point is like
$12 million for.
You could have done that, or you could have gotten 3 better guys, 8, 9, 10 for $5 million each.
Right.
Well, why didn't you do that?
Why didn't we do that? Well,
because you could have better depth, Bob.
We had cheap guys that we drafted, which
right? Because you draft amazingly. Yes.
Well, I'm not saying any of these things for the record. Okay.
So he gives him the zinger of basically, you haven't drafted very well, and that's been one of the ultimately what has hurt the Warriors over time here is they have not hit in the draft. They had a lot of first-round picks, high first-round picks, and they missed on them with Bob Myers in charge.
Because again, and for those who don't know the whole story, okay, and they get into this in the full, I think it was an hour?
It's a full hour, yes.
Yeah. But, Myers was an agent. He was brought into the Warriors initially as an assistant GM to be basically help part of the transition. At the time, Jerry West was like the senior consultant for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
He helped bring Bob Myers in. So Bob Myers was there when they drafted Klay Thompson. He was the GM when they drafted Draymond Green and Harrison Barnes, Kevon Looney. So there are guys he drafted that you're like, okay, those are somebody.
Right. And that is where there is a little bit of confusion because Jerry West was still there.
Right. And depending on who you ask, was Jerry West making the decisions? Was Bob making decisions? Because there was also a point where the Warriors didn't even have a draft pick in 2017. They had 0.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, the picks that he really whiffed on was pick 2 with James Wiseman.
Right.
Pick 7 with Jonathan Kuminga. And then I don't remember what number, but he took Moses.
Moses Moody?
Yes.
Yeah, it was the 14th overall pick.
Yeah, so those were his 3 highest picks. and none of them really worked out. Now, Wiseman being the second pick of the draft was a complete bust.
Now, some people say, but you flipped Wiseman and got Wiggins, and that's how you win a championship. So do you give Myers credit for rectifying it?
Yeah, it's a good trade.
I'm just saying, I don't know where the measure is.
No, I'm saying and as I said, I think the best option for the Sixers would have been if Morey and Myers could have worked together.
Right.
Morey kind of working the draft because he has a much better track record in the draft. And maybe Myers running the organization and the culture and being the spokesman and maybe making trades like that.
But maybe this, little audio kind of shows you that maybe that relationship was more congenial than it was professionally friendly.
Oh, I don't think there's any question that those two guys are not the best of friends. But I don't think they hate each other. Right. I just think it's like maybe, I don't want to say a jealousy. You know what I mean? Like
very different philosophies.
Definitely different philosophies, came from different backgrounds. And Morey's just an odd guy to get along with anyway. Myers seems like more Mr. Popular, talks to everybody out in front. And Morey's just a quirky, yeah. Yeah, Morey's just an odd bird, dude. But I think listening to those two talk, Morey kind of put him in a pretzel a little bit. All right, when we come back, Kevin Cooney from the Kevin Cooney Report. Things he's over with in Philly sports right now. Stick around. All right, Sports Match 97.3 ESPN. Mike Hill with you. Memorial Day weekend is coming. Not great weather. However, we'll keep the theme of not great weather with things we want to see out of Philadelphia sports. Kevin Cooney has been covering sports in Philly for over 25 years. He's got a new Substack, The Cooney Report. Check that out, kevincooney.substack.com. What would he like to see out of Philadelphia sports? I woke up with this fun list this morning, and I figured no better time to introduce Kevin Cooney to the show than to have him kind of interject with some of the things that he wants out of here, things he would get rid of in Philadelphia. There's a lot of them. Let's see what's on his list. We'll talk about that, the Phils, the Sixers offseason, and more right now with Kevin Cooney from the Kevin Cooney Substack, The Cooney Report. He joins me right now. What's going on, Kev?
Mike, how are you?
Always a pleasure. It's always fun to catch up and talk a little Philly sports with you. And I like this Substack this morning. I was reading this, and I just started to say, man, there's a list that you could have probably kept on going. Did they give you like a character limit?
No. It was one of those. It was basically my own like fatigue limit. And obviously, since we were also at that point in the summer where you're down to one sport, I think we've, almost until the Sixers hire a new GM, there's not a lot to report there anymore. It's just like, okay, what's a fun list? And, I think the one thing that just kept crossing my mind is, things I would get rid of, because it's a great sports town. It's the best that, in my mind, because I'm biased and I grew up here, but, there's ways you can improve it.
Well, let's take a look at some of the things on the list. And as soon as I saw this one, I started laughing because you're right. And we talked about this earlier. We were talking about different experiences that we rather do. And one of them was either or. And Josh asked me if I'd rather go to see UNC Duke or Michigan, Ohio State. And my answer was UNC Duke, because if it was at Cameron, because the arena is the sell, not the game as much as the arena. Right. And this arena in Philly has no selling point.
And the scary part is, Mike, it's gotten a little better as far as like the basic amenities when you go there. But I mean, it opened kind of sterile. The early years of the building were its best. When you had the Lindros era Flyers, and then you ended up with the Iverson era Sixers. But think of it. We're 4 years away from that building going away. And the honest to God question is, well, what is your favorite memory? And those memories are going to be 30 years old, basically by the time we get to that point. Because I know some people would say, well, the 2010 Flyers, yeah, okay. But, the ending there was so brutal. I don't know if people would actually say that. The Iverson Sixers are probably the best. There's no history behind it. There's no charm. It doesn't even have, for those of us who grew up in this area, it doesn't even have the charm of the Spectrum, which was, hey, we were all common community on one concourse and everybody had to go to the basement to use the bathroom and all that. Just none of that is there. And I think that is, I don't think anybody will be shedding tears over filling the name of the arena center.
That hasn't helped it either, though, Kev. The fact that they've changed the name of it so many times, you don't really even remember at what part of it you were at. Was it the FU? Was it the Wells Fargo? Was it the Core States? Was it Xfinity Mobile? Like, it has changed so many times that has been another problem with the place.
And I hope that when they move into this new building, they kind of look. I know corporate sponsorship is always going to be there, but look, Citizens Bank Park is now 23 years old.
Amazing.
There's no sign that's changing. You're going to have Lincoln Financial Field, who's 24 years old this year. That's not changing, it appears, anytime soon, except when FIFA comes in to screw it up. I mean, so there's that whole thing of, they were able to keep a little bit of a consistency. And that's certainly not what that arena has had.
You're right about that, too. There isn't a moment. Like, there's no championships in there. There's nothing that says that was it. The concerts, I mean, I went to one concert in there. I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers, the sound in there, not the Spectrum by any stretch, not even Boardwalk Hall down here, which is a great concert venue. So, yeah.
And it's not a good college basketball building.
No.
I mean, they've had the NCAA tournament there, but those tournament games have kind of been, except for maybe Florida Gulf Coast, nondescript. It's just, there's nothing there.
All right, we're ready to get rid of that. Number 2 on Kevin's list. Check out his Substack, kevincooney.substack.com. The Phillies City Edition jerseys. This one is number 1 by a mile. This is a travesty that they go out there every Friday night looking like a beer league softball team.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're regular jerseys, and look, you got the powder blues, which are classic. They're pinstripes, which are pretty awesome. I get gray, you can't do a hell of a lot with, but the gray is pretty, for traditionalists, it's pretty good. I think the cream ones are underrated because of how sharp they are, and there's a tie to their history. There's nothing about the City Edition that ties in with the franchise. Nothing. Blue and yellow. They're in the city flag. I've lived here my whole life. If you show me the city flag of Philadelphia, I will go, okay. I didn't know what that was. It just is. And, the gaudy type and everything. I just didn't like it from the start. And now that we've entered this third year, I think, of them, I'm just done. I just want them gone.
I agree. You even mentioned the hat. I'm out on the hat. I'm out on everything. I don't need any of it.
I don't mind the hat.
Oh, the whole thing. The navy, the yellow, get it out. And you're right. The script is bad. I always say, any team that wears a baseball pant that's not white or gray, I can't take you seriously. You're wearing blue pants out there, you're out.
And look, it's not just the Phillies with that. MLB,
all of them,
and Tyler Kepner from the Athletic has been railing on this for years, and he's right. There's how many City Edition uniforms do you say are really good? And
none.
Maybe one, maybe.
I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Kevin Cooney's with us, looking at things we're ready to get rid of in Philly sports. This fun list, guys. The Sixers song. I think people like the Sixers song, Kevin, but I do agree. The team's mediocre. The song kind of now feels like you just do it. I don't know. At what point does it just fade away? Do you just keep doing it because you've done it? It just feels like now it's out of place.
Well, and the thing was that it went away for a long time. During Comcast, when Ed Snyder and Comcast owned it, you never heard the song, And that was fine. I mean, look, there's a barrage of things that go on there that they probably could get rid of. The Mr. Burns Excellent, which has been there since the building opened.
Yes.
I mean, but to me, it's almost like, okay, I get it. It's not Fly Eagles Fly and all that. You haven't had success with it, so why do we keep playing it? And why does everybody get so emotionally attached when it hasn't? The same thing as one of the next ones that's coming up. It hasn't worked in a long time. Change it up. And I think that's something that if I was somebody in the Sixer management, I would make a big deal about that.
I actually like you talked about the Mr. Burns Excellent. I don't know how many people actually catch that thing has just been always played. The one thing too is the music while the team has they're bringing the ball up. I don't need to hear music while the game is being played.
Nope.
They started to add that, that kind of stuff. I don't know. The Sixers song, I think people like the song, but probably pick spots and just not randomly play it whenever you win games. Feels like it's time to go. I do kind of agree on that one. The other one is one that the Flyers have kind of instituted here.
Yeah, I'm look, in this one, my wife looked at it when I was writing and went, "You're really going down this road?" The Kate Smith "God Bless America" thing in the 70s worked.
Yeah,
obviously. They were the 36-3-1 when they won their cup with it, and Kate was in the building and all that. And I would even go through 87, which was Game 6 against Edmonton. That was like maybe the next biggest moment after that, and obviously the rushing game as well. It's 40 plus, it's 40 years. And again, it's not working. And you have somebody in Lauren Hart that everybody loves as part of the game presentation. Just let her sing the national anthem. The good luck charm's not a good luck charm anymore. And, it's not look, I love America and all that. I don't want people thinking I'm like bashing the song. No,
your point is valid. You've done this because it was supposed to be for a very special game to bring good luck, and that when they did it, they haven't had good luck with the song and the way that they've done it.
And Mike, the other part of it too is they break it out too much.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're down 3-0 in the series against Carolina. Probably not a night you need it.
No, just okay. It's almost like the special bottle that you may have in your fridge. Like a beer or a wine or something that you're chilling for a really monumental occasion. Down 3-0 is not it.
Kevin Cooney, his Substack, check that out. He's got things he's done with in Philly sports. This one's very interesting. The retired numbers that aren't yet retired. And 3 guys that you mentioned are the Rollins, Howard, and Utley guys that obviously – now, I'd like to hear your expository on this before I comment.
All right. I think all 3 of them should have their numbers retired.
Agree.
But if they're not retired, in other words, I want them to just kind of make the decision. Okay, retire. Okay? But if they're not retired, just having them out of circulation makes no sense. It's in a strange way, like Cole Hamels has had 3 people wear 35 since he left here. Like David Dahl was one. I'm trying to remember some of the others. I put them in the Substack, but I don't have it off the top of my head. And I kept going, well, at least I remember people getting outraged. Oh my God, they gave away Hamels' number. That at least is acknowledging Hamels was there. With Jimmy and Chase and Ryan not having a number out there that you could even get upset that somebody else is wearing that number, kind of just makes it like you're almost chicken. You're trying to have it both ways of we're retiring the number, but we're not officially putting it up on the wall. And I think that's kind of weaselly. That's all.
So my look at this, and I want to see if you agree or not. By the way, the other 35s have been Oscar Mercado, Drew Ellis, David Dahl, and Carlos Hernandez have all wore Cole Hamels' numbers. So I imagine that Hamels is not on the list to get his number retired. My question to you would be, Kevin, are Rollins, Howard, and Utley going to get their numbers retired? I would say probably yes. But are the Phillies waiting?
I think 2 of them are. I don't know if Ryan Howard is necessarily a given.
Okay. Well, are the Phillies waiting for a downturn in attendance to find a way to bring people to the ballpark for a night when they need it?
You see, their policy here has been a little weird, and you're right. I mean, attendance is the main
thing. They haven't needed a gimmick to get people to go to the ballpark.
No.
I mean, the Sixers only have how many different Allen Iverson's nights, to try to get people out there before they started to fill that building back up.
I would say, if you want to take it this way, if their long-standing policy was, well, you had to make the Hall of Fame, okay, to get your number retired, even though that really wasn't the policy when they retired Richie Ashburn, and they retired Schmitty and Carlton. And by the way, I'm saying they should have been retired, but they did that before they all went into Cooperstown. So it's kind of a selective policy. Yeah, Jim Bunning, they didn't retire his number. They retired his number before he went in, and obviously Dick Allen as well. I think that they've kind of you're right. They're probably trying to milk it for a little bit of the gate. Once look, and you and I both think this is turning bad here in the next year or two. They're probably milking it for that. But I also wonder, are you doing them a disservice by not retiring their number while they're still on the Hall of Fame ballot, and maybe draw some attention to it.
Yeah, it is one of the you got Howard, Rollins, and Utley, who are obviously the three main names of that era. There, it's whatever configuration you put it in, those three guys are definitely the headliners.
And Mike, the way I would say it too is, okay, those three, if you don't retire their numbers, what's the highest they can get? Well, they'll get a plaque on the Wall of Fame. Are they going to be in the same class as Juan Samuel and Mike Lieberthal and all that?
Well, the Phillies Wall of Fame has turned into just, hey, were you a nice guy that we liked while you were here?
Well, and eventually you're going to have all these 08 guys, Victorino and Ruiz, and I know there's going to be a case for Worth and Lidge and all that. Okay, you want to put them on, that's fine. Those three deserve a higher level than just that. Now, that higher level could be a statue, or it could be retiring their numbers. And I think retiring their numbers is the easiest one to go by.
Well, by the way, it looks like Howard, Victorino, and Rollins are going to be at the All-Star Game festivities. That was announced earlier today.
Yeah, they're going to be there. They're doing basically the baseball version of 3-ball, which, I hope it works better than it did for the NBA.
All right, one more that you say you're ready to get rid of, the demise of the Big Five. Now, they kind of brought this back. They've done this kind of weekend deal at the Xfinity Mobile Arena, but it's not catching on?
I mean, they would say it's catching on because they've had full crowds, or they sold all the tickets. The problem is, you have 6 different schools all playing triple header. The building's still half empty in my mind. Because if you're there for game 1, you're not going to be there for game 3, odds are. If you're a Drexel fan or whatever. It's just a sign of a different time in college athletics. Let's also be real. The Big Five, the City Six, whatever you want to call it, it's not all created equal. You have one really dominant power in Villanova, who has an ability to be on a national stage, and then you got 5 little brothers at this point. And yes, I'm counting Temple in that group at the moment, who are not playing the same caliber of basketball. And I just don't know if it's a fair fight anymore, between NIL money and national TV money and all that. And the second part is there was something special when Temple and Villanova would meet in mid-January for the city title. Okay, basically the unofficial round robin city title. You're doing it in December. You're going up against the NFL. I don't get the sense there's a lot of fire in the general sports fan at that point.
Yeah, it feels that it gets lost in the sauce. I will agree with you on that. It seems like a great concept that they could do something with. I think that building's the wrong building for it, though.
That too.
Yeah, you got to go
have
to
it in the Palestra.
Right.
Right.
Putting it in the corporate building makes it feel like a corporate made-for-TV event, and I think that's hurt it a little bit as well. Kevin Cooney's Cooney Report. Check out his Substack, kevincooney.substack.com. You can sign up right now. It is free to do, and he will send this to you. Let's hit on 5 quickies here with Kevin. Phillies have lost 2 out of the last 3. I'd love to get your take on 19-9 with Topper, 16-6 with Don Mattingly. What has changed over the last 22?
Softer schedule. Let's be real. I mean, they beat up on some pretty bad teams, whereas Topper's last 13 were against, Atlanta and Chicago, who are 2 of the better teams in the National League. That's one. I would say part 2 of it is having Sanchez and Wheeler at the top of your starting rotation just gives you a stability factor, and especially when you consider that Luzardo can be up and down, Painter's still going through his learning curve, and Nola is just the shell what he used to be. The 2 guys at the top of the lineup in Schwarber and Harper have carried them. Schwarber isn't there this week, and you can see the difference. So, I mean, I think when you add all that together, I don't think they're as bad as they were at 9-19. I don't think they're as good as they were at 16-6. I think this next road trip to San Diego and LA will tell us a lot about what the rest of the summer will be, but they're going to be like a second or a third wild card team in the National League. And, the National League is kind of, I know everybody loves the Dodgers, and they have a right to. They've won the World Series the last couple of years. I'm not sold on the Cubs quite yet being, a playoff team, and I'm certainly not sold on the Braves because I don't know what their pitching will look like.
Yeah, we know. I think we've been talking about it for the last, 5 years. They need a right-handed bat, and I don't know where you find them. They had a pitching albatross in their rotation the last couple of years. They didn't know what to do with them in Taijuan Walker. They finally ate the $18 million, and amazingly, it resurfaced like that zit that's on your face, and you get rid of it, and then it comes right back in the form of Aaron Nola now. This is a 4-year problem, though, right?
Yeah, and this to me is, we've talked about some of the contracts Dombrowski has had, and you go, man, these are bad. Yeah, the Castellanos, the Walkers, all that. This to me would be the worst because you could just tell that they got overly sentimental and they decided to give him a deal because they didn't want him walking away and pitching for the Braves or whatever, when the business move would have been to let him walk. And it cost them Rangers Suarez, and it now has cost them a ton of money. It gives them it boxes them in financially.
Well, and this is something, Kevin, where a lot of times in what we do, whether we're writing or talking, we have an opinion. We think we can give you an answer on how to fix it. Here's one that there's no fix. There's no answer here. You can't DFA them. You can't send them to the bullpen. That's not going to work. There's no answer here other than trotting them out there every fifth day and most likely taking the loss.
The only answer would be a Phantom IL, and they tried that last year. Yeah, and they tried that last year, really, and it didn't work either. So,
all right, man. Great stuff. Enjoy the weekend. It's your favorite weekend of the year, right? The first weekend of the summer down the shore.
I know I'm speaking to a shore audience, okay? I hope every business does very well this weekend.
It should. It won't be nice enough to go to the beach.
Well, yeah, that's the reason I never got why people made a point of being there on Memorial Day weekend, because it's always cold, it's always raining, and the water's not warm enough to get in.
Kev, I ask all the time when I drive north and I see the cars lined up. I live here year round, and listen, I love it down here. I say to myself, who in their right mind thinks this place is worth that wait in traffic? There's nothing down here that would make you say, I am willing to sit in that traffic line for any weekend, period, point blank, let alone the cold one.
Well, and look, I love going. I love going to Ocean City and Wildwood, and yes, I've dropped a few dollars in AC at the Ocean and other hotels down there. But I'm also realistic. I don't necessarily need to be there the minute the doors open. Late June, fine, but not late May.
Well, we'll catch up again soon, everybody out there. Kevin Cooney, check out the Cooney Report, kevincooney.substack.com, at Kevin Cooney on the Twitter X platform. You can find him and find out how to find all his great writing over there. Kevin, appreciate it, man.
No problem, Mike. Anytime.
Kevin Cooney, everybody, longtime veteran sports writer. And we'll talk to Kevin throughout the summer here. That was a lot of fun here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Memorial Day weekend is here, everybody. The Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN. And I want to tell you about my friends over at Key Acura of Atlantic City. You guys know the place. You guys know the spot. It is Key Acura. We've been telling you guys about it, but you're running out of time. You got to make sure between now and May 31st, you can lease 2026 Acura Integra for $199 a month for 36 months. Get the Key Acura on Tilton Road in EHT or visit KeyAcuraAtlanticCity.com. Go see what all the excitement is about. We got more Sports Bash on the way. It's 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back on a Thursday edition of the Sports Bash. Thanks to Kevin Cooney. That was fun. We'll talk to Kevin throughout the summer. Check out his new Substack, subscribe, and check out his musings throughout the summer. That was a fun little segment of things we're ready to get rid of. Anything, Josh, you want to get rid of in Philly sports, or did he kind of hit on all yours? The stadium is done. He's done with that. The uniforms, I'm over. I hate it. I never liked the uniforms.
See, I never liked the City Connect, so I mean, I'm totally fine with burning those.
Yeah. Big Five.
I feel
Sixers song.
I feel like some of these things, it's not that we need to get rid of them, it's that we need to either like make them better or like change how we value them.
Like the Dancing on My Own. We decided to finally move on from that one.
Well, that thing would just kill to death. I mean,
But you could say like the Sixers song. He talked about the God Bless America thing, not because he doesn't like the song. He just said it was supposed to be used as like quote unquote a good luck charm,
right?
And it hasn't worked.
And the good luck charm ran out.
Chuck Lorre, yes, the good luck charm has
like Dancing on My Own
seemingly is not working for them anymore.
Right, the Dancing on My Own ran out of juice as well.
Yes. So if you have some things that you're ready to get rid of in Philly sports, let us know. 609-403 0973. I like the concept of the Big Five, but I do think it has been corporate and like it's run its course. If you're not going to play it in the Palestra and do it the right way, then stop just trying to squeeze it into it.
To me, the biggest problem with the Big Five is that it's so hard for college basketball to stay grassroots anymore with the big conferences and the TV contracts and the NIL and all the variables in college basketball now. There's no one of the things that made the Big Five great was like you knew who every coach was, and every school had like its own personality. You know, John Chaney, he coached Temple a certain way, and Frank Dunphy coached UPenn a certain way. It's not that way anymore.
It really isn't. And he kind of laid it out. You got Villanova, who's a national power, and then LaSalle, Drexel, St. Joe, Temple. They have just fallen off the map in terms of a national. Fallen
off the map somewhat locally too.
That is true. Yeah, you're right about that. Like, Temple used to be a national program that you knew about and heard about. They played Duke. It was big games. I don't even know what conference they're in anymore.
I have to double check. I think they're in the A-10.
Is A-10 even a basketball conference still? I mean, I think they are, but I just am saying, like, that's the point is you don't even know what conference they're in. You know, for all you know, Temple has just not been a relevant basketball program really after John Chaney left. I mean,
I was wrong. It's the AAC.
So they moved to the AAC. Okay. Well, there is an A-10 still, right? They're out of the A-10 for basketball.
Out of the A-10.
I think LaSalle is still in the A-10.
Yeah, so is St. Joe.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's been rough. All right. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We heard from Sean Mannion earlier, and I don't think anybody asked him anything about A.J. Brown.
Nope. They asked him about Kai Lemon. They asked him about the other guys on the team, but nothing about A.J. Brown, which brings us to the saga. Maybe this should have been on Kevin Cooney's list. Things to get rid of is the A.J. Brown conversation, right? I mean, this thing's been dragging on for months. Well, your guy, Sal Paolantonio, was on another guy that you know, Jason Fitz's show over on Yahoo Sports, and he was asked about the A.J. Brown, like basically like what is going on with A.J. Brown and the Eagles. Here is Sal Paolantonio.
And it's definitely an open door until the deal is done. You know, the compensation has moved. It moved from 2 number ones in 2027 draft to maybe a number 2 in the 27 draft. And now all the conversation centers around whether the Patriots will give up a first-round pick in the 2028 draft for A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown will enter his 31st age in the NFL. He'll be 31 years old. And will he even be on the New England Patriots roster when the Eagles finally reap that compensation?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing that has bothered me a little bit is about the compensation of the pick being 2028. That is one thing that still kind of doesn't sit well with me. If that's the best offer you can get, is that a deal that you should make? Or do you try to hope that A.J. Brown is happy playing in a different offense? Or are we past that?
I think we're past that. I think that the toothpaste is so far out of the tube, as Jeff McClain and Albert Breer said about a month and a half ago. How do you even have a conversation about bringing him back at this point? Like, it's almost like, you have to let bygones be bygones and say, hey, AJ, thanks for helping us win a Super Bowl championship, but we're moving on. We got Mekhi Lemon now.
I think that the Eagles have made every indication that they're ready to move on, right? If this was something that we weren't sure, the Eagles have made it sure. The only one that I'm a little unsure of is the compensation.
I would say the fact that you had to wait until June 1st to make it work in your best interest financially, that probably did the most damage for your ability to trade him, right?
Yeah. The damage would be if you cut it off to one team and just said, if you're acquiescing to where he wants to go, which happens sometimes with star players.
It does. And I think that's where Sal was saying, look, the door is still open. Anything could happen, even though we're all assuming Brown is going. And Sal Pal goes on to say that there is one element of this that kind of gets overlooked about the fact of what AJ Brown's, shall we call it, perception of him is inside the locker room, not among the fans.
Clearly, you have to have the right deal for AJ Brown. And congratulations to AJ Brown. I did see on social media that he got married, and that's good for him. I mean, I've interviewed him many times, and I've always found him to be a real stand-up guy. He's very popular in the locker room, in the building in South Philadelphia, and he will definitely be missed. He was a popular player in Philadelphia, no question about that.
Listen, I can't argue with anything he said there. We talked about it at the Super Bowl. We had multiple players on, Kobe Dean, Cooper DeJean, Reed Blankenship, and others who all talked about how AJ was one of their best friends on the team. They loved AJ, that he lit up the room. I don't know if it's just so broken between him and Jalen Hurts that can't be repaired, and that's the genesis of this, or as we wondered, is it just he didn't like the offense? Well, now they changed the offense. Would he be willing, or is it just that relationship is so fractured?
And the other part of it is, Sal mentioned how he's happy that AJ Brown got married. There is a part of you that has to wonder, how much of this was AJ unwilling when it came to some of this stuff. We've heard the accusations that he's quit on routes, that, there were plays that he did not run all the way through, that Jillian was throwing to him and then he didn't finish the play, and that's what led to a turnover. And you do have to wonder, if AJ might have been a little more mature about it, maybe things would have been a little different.
Listen, I think that a lot of this has to do with AJ's behavior, AJ behind the scenes. I do think that Sal Pal mentioned his age. He's going to be coming up on 31.
Yeah.
His age 31 season. I think that plays a factor in all this for everybody. If you are, he's only 28 now. He'll be playing this season coming up
at the end of his contract. He'll be 31.
Right. So he's going to be 29 this year. But I think the Eagles are trying to balance whether or not they're getting out of this ahead of time. And I think the Patriots are balancing the same thing of, hey, we don't want to give you a first-round pick because we could be getting the guy at the back end.
Exactly. And I think that's where the interesting pivot for this is. So Adam Schefter, as I feel like he's been asked on every platform everywhere, was asked about what is going on with the AJ Brown situation and if he's still going to the Patriots. Well, here was Adam Schefter on a radio station in Boston.
The closer we get to June 1st, the more AJ Brown chatter is starting to pick up. And we're starting to hear about other teams entering the mix. I was on a Philadelphia radio show. They brought up the idea that the Rams could be getting back in. They brought up the idea that the Jaguars could be getting back in. All of a sudden, that's interesting. I will remain in the camp that we've been in for the last 6-7 weeks, which is that I still think he's getting traded. I still think he's getting traded on or shortly after June 1st. I still think that the New England Patriots are going away the lead contender to land A.J. Brown this offseason.
And I don't have any reason to question whether Adam Schefter is off on that because everybody else is throwing this Jacksonville stuff out and this stuff and the Rams. And I think that Adam Schefter's saying, you're not using me as a pawn in this trade. I know what's happening here. So I'm not going to put out this information. It's the Patriots.
Well, I think it's also the fact that, Schefter was really the first person in the aftermath of the Diana Rossini initial criticism before it was discovered that her and Mike Vrabel were having shenanigans together. But, Schefter was the first one to really come out and basically affirm a lot of her reporting, which was that basically that A.J. Brown wants to be a Pat. The Pats want A.J. Brown. The Eagles are saying, okay, we're willing to explore this, but we're not trading you for a bag of peanuts.
Yeah. Listen, man, I wish I could go back in time to see when this kind of started. During the middle of the season, you kind of randomly heard, hey, don't be surprised if A.J. Brown wants to go to the Patriots next year or ends up with it. And you're like, okay, Patriots, stop with this nonsense. And then here we are on, May 21st, and now it's coming to fruition that all that talk back when we were just kind of like, where's this coming from?
Well, I go back to the one Derek Gunn report, remember during the season, where, the first half of the report was about Jalen Hurts. Then the second half of the report was about how A.J. Brown, guys are saying, A.J. Brown is, complaining. He wants the ball more, right? Jeff McClain was reporting the same thing. And then A.J. Brown had the Twitch stream. And then A.J. Brown was like, oh, y'all are reading too much into it, right? And then all of a sudden, A.J. Brown started getting targets and they started losing games. Remember that? So there is a very strange arc to the season that resulted in how we got from there to now. And I do find it interesting, as Schefter points out, that he says that he is curious about the timing of some of these other teams wanting to take another shot at getting A.J. Brown.
And I don't care what other teams come up in connection with A.J. Brown trade talks between now and June 1st. Don't care about what other conversations there are. These other teams have had their opportunities throughout the offseason. There were conversations with the Rams that did not result in a deal. I don't know about Jacksonville. I don't even know where that's coming from, but I still think that the New England Patriots make the most sense. And I still think that when all is said and done, as we've said, that the Patriots will wind up agreeing to a deal that will land A.J. Brown in New England and reunite him with Mike Vrabel.
All right, well, he said it. I don't know where this Jacksonville stuff came. I'm not buying. Basically, I'm not getting roped into this stuff. Again, that further kind of exemplifies that this deal sounds done. New England, Philadelphia, and that's disappointing. Now, we don't know what the compensation is, but what we've heard seems to be disappointing. Now, what I will say is in April of 2028, when that draft pick comes to fruition, we might not be thinking it was such a bad deal.
No, because that kind of goes back to the conversation we were having in the last hour about the Daryl Morey Sixers stuff. And that is, hey, we may not have been happy that they traded away Jared McCain, but in the future, when that first round pick lands and you get a good player out of it, are we going to be looking back and saying, thank you, Daryl Morey? Or like, for example, how many times, Mike, if you brought up the Ed Wade stuff, right? Ed Wade kept Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley and Ryan Howard. And even though he didn't reap the benefit of those guys being the foundation of the team won championship anyway, because of him not relenting.
Well, I don't know. This one to me just seems so bizarre of how it happened in the circumstances that it got out there and all of it, I mean, the Patriots went to the Super Bowl last year. Now, yes. I get it. Maybe they feel they lost Stephon Diggs too, by the way.
They did.
So maybe they felt like, hey, we are this player away. But these rumors came up in season last year.
Yes, in season. And remember, Howie Roseman was asked about it, and he said, we're not trading a guy like A.J. Brown. Well, part of it was because you don't trade a guy like that in season. Howie's never traded a guy like that in season.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that Roseman knows he has to do something here, right?
Well, that's kind of what James Palmer was explaining to Kay Adams recently about, because she kind of pushed back on this idea about, why are you trading a player that has been such an important part of the Philadelphia Eagles?
Howie has no timetable. That's the part of it here. Like, he is in no rush. Like, I mean,
So
I guess
AJ
you can
Brown's
take
in
it all the way
training
up to
camp?
the start of the season. I think he's in a different uniform by the start of the season, but I think he doesn't have to do a deal at June 1, right? He doesn't have, like, there's deadlines are usually by money where certain things kick in, right? Okay, like that,
Yeah.
those don't exist really within this contract. So, like, he can kind of give it a couple weeks and maybe a month or two and see how this goes. But I don't think they're better without AJ. I do think what they noticed last year is that the frustrations and what was going on was starting to finally make its way onto the playing field. And that's when things get a little bit different in terms of where you are with a player that's disgruntled.
All right. Hey, look, if that's the case, then yeah, they obviously know they have to move on here. If it started to make its way onto the field, playing field.
I think it did. A lot of people from Warner to Foles and others who have played it out.
The question is, you're the Eagles, though. Do you have any intrigue on what AJ would look like in this offense and say, hey, maybe he'll be happier?
I think you have intrigue, but I think you also have to live in a reality where when you're in a toxic relationship, you got to realize that no amount of change of setting or environment or personnel is going to change the toxicity of the relationship.
Who sung that? Toxicity. System of a Down.
That's right.
To be a downer if AJ is gone. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Watch and subscribe to the Sports Bash on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. We will close out tonight's show. Coming up next. All right, get ready to get out of here. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. It's the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, tomorrow, a big Friday show for everybody out there. It will be a fun show. We'll do our places to go this summer, places we want to check out. Also, our NFL Friday 5 tomorrow as well. We've got Game 2 tonight, Knicks and Cavs. You can listen to it on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, no Phils tonight. So enjoy the night off of no Phillies baseball. Find a little something. I'd go Knicks and Cavs. I think the Knicks win again tonight. I do think the Knicks take the first two and go to Cleveland up 2-0. The other series, of course, is 1-1, and we'll preview that one a little bit more on tomorrow's show. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the Sports Bash.